Good evening. The Concord Township Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for September 14th, 2022 is now in session. I would like to introduce my board. To my far left is Skip Sweeney and Davey Rowan. I'm Ivan Valentic. To my right is Todd Goling, and Heather Freeman is to my far right, our zoning inspector. Excuse me. Under the advice of our legal counsel, we ask that anyone speaking tonight must be sworn in. So if you plan on speaking, please stand and raise your right hand. I'd encourage you, if there's maybe a chance you're going to speak, we'll get you sworn in now. Okay. Do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help me God. If so, say I do. I do. Thank you. Please be seated. This evening, when presenting on any case or commenting, come to the microphone, state your name, state your address, and confirm that you've been sworn in, okay? Heather, were the legal notices published in a timely manner?
Yes, they were.
Perfect. Okay. Tonight we have a pretty full agenda. We have a conditional use permit and we have various variance applications. So a 3-vote majority is required to either approve or deny your appeal. If a request is denied, you can see Heather later. As you notice, we're usually a 5-person board. We only have 4 tonight. So when you come up to present, I'll confirm with whoever's presenting their variance or conditional use permit if they're okay moving forward with a 4-person board instead of 5. But you still need a 3-vote majority to be approved. All right. So first is variance application 2022-11. Richard Summers is requesting a variance from section 30.11H to allow for the construction of a gateway sign in the public right-of-way of Chandler Court for the Eagle Point subdivision located at intersection of Chandler Court and Colburn Road. Mr. Summers, please come up.
Richard Summers, 10585 Somerset Drive, Shard, and I have been sworn. We're asking for a variance tonight to erect, I think everybody had in their package, a picture of a subdivision monument sign. It is consists of wood, molded wood, and a masonry column. This subdivision's a little bit unique in that the normal subdivision has a 60-foot right-of-way. This particular subdivision, back to a creek, approximately 600 feet, has a 74-foot right-of-way in lieu of the 60. So what we're asking tonight is to place the monument sign as you come into the subdivision off Colburn Road. The right-of-way goes from the neighboring property line to obviously the center of the road and then beyond. We're asking to place this sign in the right-of-way. It would meet the setback requirements of 10 feet from the west property line. We'd be approximately 22.5 feet back from the curb. And it is far enough back that it will not interfere with the sight distance of anybody leaving the subdivision so that they wouldn't be able to see.
So you guys confirmed that? You had somebody check that?
Yes, we did. I believe the zoning department might have gone out and checked it. If you've been there, it'll be basically where the Ryan Home sign is right now.
What about any utilities in that area?
Obviously, we'll do oops, but there aren't any right there. We're well beyond the utility easement area. And the sewer and water go across the front of the property, and we're substantially behind that.
Yeah, my largest concern was the sight distance. I assumed it looked okay, but as long as you guys have checked it and you can confirm that there isn't a sight distance issue.
Typically, what you do is come back 30 feet from the right-of-way that goes along the road, and then 30 feet to the west, and you draw a triangle, and it has to be back there, and that's the sight distance rules. We're well beyond that.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Just if it had been you said it was 60 feet normally, correct?
Correct.
For the right of way. If it had been 60 feet, would this be out of that right of way then?
Yes, it would.
Okay. So because of the 77, we're in the right of
It's
way.
actually 74, I
74.
believe. The right-of-way is 74, not 60. So we have 14 extra feet. So we would have had that 14-foot buffer. The base of the sign is 28 by 28, and we're 10 feet off the property line. So we would have been within that buffer.
Gotcha.
Todd, any questions?
No questions.
All right, thank you. You can be seated.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else speaking for this appeal that would like to come up? Is there anyone else here speaking against the appeal that'd like to come up? If there's no further questions, the public hearing for variance number 2022-11 is now closed to the public. Can I get a motion to approve the variance 2022-111?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Anything?
Looks good.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, I think for me, the fact that if it had been a 60-foot, it would be okay. I think that, to me, makes me think we should approve it. I drove by it earlier today. I didn't have any problems driving by, seeing anything like that, so I think it's good.
Okay. All right, if there's no other questions or changes, can we get a vote on approval for variance number 2022-11? A yes vote approves the variance and no vote denies it. Heather, please call vote.
Mr. Goling?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Rowan?
Yes.
And Mr. Valente?
Yes, your variance has been approved. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is conditional use permit application 2022-24. Jay Bernard, on behalf of the property owner, Concord Plaza Limited Liability Company, is requesting a conditional use permit in accordance with section 13.17 to allow for ATM drive-through facility for the property located at 9853 Johnny Cake Ridge Road, current parcel number 10-A-028-D-00-001-0.
I'm Chris Biggers, representing J. Bernard, 131 East Commerce Street, Milford, Michigan. I have been sworn in.
Thank you.
We are proposing to install an ATM onto an existing parking lot. There was formerly an ATM on there at some point that's been removed, so there's already electrical data lines in that area. The difference is we are pulling our ATM back a little bit from the road to be out of the setback area, and we've also decided to move the ATM. The previous ATM was in the drive lane, the car lane, so we are offsetting ours to get cars that are using the ATM off of the drive, and it'll be well lit. It has its own camera, and it's an ATM machine that.
And there's, with the conditional use permit, there's a lot of conditions in 13.05 and 13.17. Are you familiar with all of them?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess maybe I have one question, and I don't know if maybe Heather can help me on this one if need be, but there's a setback, but it looks like the ATM is out of the setback, but there's a portion of the structure, that's still within the setback. So it's easy when we look at a house, a house has got to be set back, it's a house. So this is an ATM with, curb and island, and it looks like, a little post that's within the setback area.
I guess our intent was the ATM machine and the canopy would be located out of the setback line. We do have a concrete curb. We do have a light pole that would be in the setback, which should be, I believe, would be permitted, but we could move the whole curb back if that was the case. We just felt only the structure had to be past the setback.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either, so that's why I thought I'd bring that up. Anybody else? I guess I have another one, but does anyone else have any questions? So they have to, you're losing parking, right? We're striping off some area, but you're only providing 3 lanes or stacking for 3 cars, but they gotta pull back out while other cars are coming in.
No, they would all come in, and then the person using the machine would continue to pull out of the ATM and then into the road. Is that what you mean, or do you?
I mean, that aisle there, that drive aisle they're pulling into the in aisle and the exit aisle is on the other side.
Oh, I
Exit
see.
lane.
You mean
Yeah,
cars will be turning left.
coming in and they're trying to get out of there and you're only providing 2 stacking areas. I mean, have you guys done this anywhere else? It just seems like not the best solution, and I don't know if this is the best spot for an ATM. I know there was one there before. I actually used it, and it wasn't, well done before. I think this is better. I still don't know if it's perfect.
We have explored that if we mirrored the machine and put it on the edge of the aisle, and could have cars turn left after the signage. There's a monument sign there. We could have cars turn left off of the road and go stack if we just mirrored the layout so that the ATM would be on the edge of the drive aisle and cars would be opposite. Yeah, we also thought of, could we make this way only out and then this way, because this area is very congested. It's got an in and out real close together.
And it's a busy parking lot
Yes.
now. They've done well with that parking lot, and they've done in that development there. It's I think it's full, if not, right?
Yeah.
Is it full? Yeah.
I think so. We were discussed the possibility of making the second drive where everyone always go out to the street, and then no one would ever be able to turn left in. We could put like no right turn sign or no entrance sign at the second drive. Because there's this drive, the next drive, and then there's the gas station in the corner right there, and it's a very lot. Like you're just
Yeah.
driving in and out of the parking lot. There's no curbs or anything that.
That old ATM's gone, right? The old ATM island is gone.
Yes.
So
There's electrical meters there, the power poles there, and then there's the stub are just buried underneath. Otherwise, we got a trench all the way to, I think, the other side of that north building. But there's already service over there that we can tap into.
Anyone else have questions?
I'm having a difficult time figuring out exactly where you want to place this. I know what you proposed, but I'm trying to reconcile the live photos with the drawings, and it's very confusing. Probably my fault. So there's a freestanding building near it. What is that?
the hearing aid place.
Hearing aid.
The hearing aid
It
place,
used to be a
right?
bank.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
That
near
used
the
to be a
road,
bank.
yes.
Right. And so.
And there's a monument sign.
I'm looking at this photo right here.
Ah,
All right.
okay.
And as I'm referencing it, I see that freestanding building.
Can we point that?
Yeah. I see the freestanding building. I see the monument
It will be
sign
right here.
in this lightly shaded area.
Yes, we will
Okay.
have, yeah, it will be right here.
All right. Okay. Gotcha. And you want to eliminate some of those parking spots and then install others in another
Yes.
area?
Yeah,
Yes.
we were gonna
would-
install.
So the net loss is what, 4 spots or something?
Well, we weren't losing them because we're putting them up by this, on the right here. There's a drive aisle that's not really being used.
I
So
see.
we're gonna restripe that area. It's like 3 lanes of traffic,
Alright.
so we're gonna stripe that off so parking can be put.
Yeah.
What we're taking out is being replaced up here, and then it
Right.
also narrows this aisle to help
And,
reduce
and to
the
further
congestion.
confuse issues, that entire plaza is almost, you can leave from any spot you're in. You can just
Yeah.
pull out onto the street.
Yeah.
There's like 5 driveways.
Yeah.
Yes.
Leave that.
Yeah.
So we're kind of eliminating one of those driveways
Okay,
by
all right.
striking that area.
That helps a lot.
And then my concern is we're taking an ATM machine and throwing it in the middle of all of this stuff.
All of that, right.
Wait, is the bank building going in, or is it just an
This is
ATM?
going to be just an ATM, so it operates as its own.
And it doesn't look that
Entity.
large.
It'll have its own power service, own address,
Just
and own data
Got it.
plans.
Okay.
I know there's also a variance piece to this, so how many parking spaces are we losing in total? What is 4, I think?
Eliminating
it was-
9 and replacing 5.
Yep.
Yes.
Has anyone talked to the person that leases that building about adding parking? Has there been a conversation with that
We-
individual?
We discussed adding, but I don't know that anywhere on the site we can add it because if you see the overall site, there's already a lot of spaces. There's a lot of, I don't know if we have an overhead, but there's a lot of spaces all throughout the site on all sides of the building. So
Yeah.
I don't know where we can add more spaces unless we restripe maybe some zones, try to rework the whole striping layout.
But the person that leases this property, do they know that you guys are adding parking on that side of the building?
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
So I guess my question related to the parking would be, by removing those 5 spaces, does that affect any requirements for spaces? Like, obviously, there's a lot of parking there. Are we taking away to where we're under what we need to have for that area?
Maybe that's a question. Heather, do you know? Is this,
Parking.
Like
do they have
Yeah.
parking less than what's required per code?
Oh, existing
already?
spaces too.
So
No,
on
by
on
taking
sheet A01, Heather Freeman, I was sworn in. On sheet A01, under the property description, looks like you have
Right.
included the parking numbers here.
It was required, we believe it's required, 244, but there's only 228 on the site already, so it's already non-conforming.
That's why
Yeah,
it's
so if it's
full all the time.
non-conforming,
It's a busy lot.
Very. And you're fully leased?
I believe so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, actually, the
Or-
Mexican restaurant that was on the other side by the tire place is vacant right now, so
Oh.
it
So
is
that
missing
one
at
might-
least one restaurant user. Right now is not currently.
That'll be filled up quick.
Yeah.
I mean, looking today too, nobody parks in this, it seemed like no one was parking in this area that we're in either, they're all gonna push off towards the other sides of the
Yeah.
building.
No one does park in that area.
Yeah. It's
And the
kind of like a
busiest nights
ghost
in
town.
Ridgewood, they're,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, people will line up on that brick wall facing the gas station. But, you know, we're just talking about here, I mean, like you said, ATM too, because I didn't realize it was gone. Shows how attentive I am. But yeah, it looks like that we're scooching it over, pushing it back and taking 4 spaces up. And I just can't remember what the old one was.
It was,
think we have-
the old one, yeah, I had a
the
picture
old
I
one,
found.
remember,
It's a
also-
big box. It was a
Yeah.
big
Yeah,
giant
yeah.
box.
Right.
This is gonna be just the ATM with a nice.
Was it right by the monument?
canopy. Yes, it was closer to the monument than we.
So it was on, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the parking lot's been redone since that
Yeah.
one was there, so it's reconfigured a little bit
Right.
differently.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
Any,
I assume that the entry will be facing the street, right? So you just exit onto the street.
Yes.
Okay.
but you gotta cross, that's my point though. Traffic's coming in and you're coming out. You have to come out, this traffic's coming in and this is coming out. That car's coming in.
But there's no dedicated in or out there, so you
Yeah,
can go
that's-
in, you can go in either before Jenny's hearing aid, after Jenny's hearing aid, or where the ATM
Oh, yeah.
was,
Yeah,
or
you
there's
can-
that third one where you go down to Ridgewood.
There's so many
Or you go
places.
around the corner by the subway, you go in by the subway, or you go around back. So, I mean, there's no dedicated in or out there.
And this is like the third entry down, so by the
Yeah.
time any traffic gets to this and they're going that plaza, they're rarely going to turn left into that third one because you're always going to go to those first
Yeah.
two. It's like an extra entry.
So I think we were talking earlier about you had considered going all the way to the road and having a right turn only.
Well, we were just thinking of, could we just make this aisle only out? Only go out.
But how would you do that? Because it's so wide.
Put the stripes, we're gonna put striping in, we could put a sign in, we could paint. some
I don't know if
arrows.
that's going to stop you. I guess what I was saying is, if you had a curb here that went out to the road, so you come into the ATM, but then you have to exit and turn right.
Oh, I see, make
That way it's-
actually a barrier.
Yeah, but make it a forced right because then people really aren't supposed to turn. That way you prevent people from turning left into there.
That might be, that's probably good, that's probably a solution we could do. We'll just
Go
force
straight out. I don't. But again, I don't know
from jumping.
if how that plays into any code. If that's an option.
Well, we're also not approving the site,
Right.
we're
Yeah.
approving the conditional
So
use.
it's
It's just,
conditional use, so okay, so that's probably for the next part.
The next level, we could probably do that, but that is a great, probably idea, that way we don't, it forces everyone to stay in there, stay in the lane.
but then it's just another curb cut there, so it's 3 lanes wide.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, you can be seated. Is there anyone else that's speaking for this appeal that'd like to come up? Or is there anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, it's not an appeal, it's a conditional
I'm
use
sorry,
permit.
thank you. Is there anyone else speaking for this conditional use permit that'd like to come up? Or is there anyone speaking against the conditional use permit that'd like to come up? If there's no further questions, the public hearing for conditional use permit application number 2022-24 is now closed to the public. Can I get a motion to approve the conditional use permit application?
Second?
Discussion?
Things fine as designed.
I think it's a bad idea.
What's that?
I think it's a bad idea.
Do you?
I think it's gonna be a mess.
Tell me why.
I just think there's too many people coming in on both sides of this thing. There's no room for the cars to stack, and you're gonna be people. Someone's gonna pull in at some point, and someone's gonna try to leave that ATM. And there could be someone behind the person trying to pull in. Doesn't seem like a great spot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm
to
just
put an
stuck on
ATM.
it. There was one there before.
It wasn't great before.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah.
It's not terrible, but it's maybe.
I think maybe that the owner could use this as an opportunity to reconfigure the travel patterns
Just,
and exits and entrances.
yeah, because
And not-
we're approving the conditional use permit, then we have to look at the two variances.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but they still have to go to zoning for site plan approval.
Correct.
Correct.
All right, so then that's inappropriate for this.
No, I'm just
Right,
saying they're,
okay.
whatever the configuration, we're just allowing them to put an ATM in that
Right,
little
so
general
it's a yes or
vicinity.
no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then if we approve
I'm
the
getting ahead of
variances,
myself.
then they go to,
that's the
with
next
their
one.
plan
That's
to
the next
zoning.
one. Right.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I was considering that there hadn't been there one before. I do have the traffic concerns. I don't know. I don't think we can see if they want to table this at this point.
No, I don't think it makes sense. 'Cause it's,
Yeah.
we're just here to decide if we want to allow,
Yeah.
give them a conditional use. Any,
I have nothing else.
okay. All right, Heather, so we're gonna have a vote on conditional use permit application 2022-24. A yes vote approves the conditional use permit, a no vote denies it. Heather, please call that vote.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes?
Mr. Goling?
Yes.
Mr. Rowan?
We go no.
Mr. Valentick?
No. Okay. Thank you. Hold on, Heather, what do we do?
What do you do with these?
Variance. We have the variance request.
I know, I don't.
Mr.
Mr.
Lucas.
Lucas, they have a subsequent application.
This was the conditional use permit was denied, and they're on the next on the agenda for a variance request. How do we handle that?
Well, the variance request is gonna be moved because the use itself, that's the underpinning for the variance request, has been denied.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, in taking action on the agenda item, you want to permanently table that based on the denial of the conditional use permit.
What?
It's hard to hear you over here, I'm sorry.
Based on the denial of the conditional use permit, this is the third item on the agenda. You want to vote, make a motion to permanently table the variance application because the underpinning for it, the conditional use permit itself was denied.
Okay,
So just to clear it off the agenda.
okay. Okay, so can we get a motion to permanently table, variance application 2022-112?
So moved.
Second?
Then can we get approval on variance appeal 2022-112 to table it? I guess we'll table it permanently, no vote, I guess does not. I guess we got to do a vote, correct?
Mr. Golling?
Yes, table.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Royan?
Yes.
And Mr. Valenta?
Yes. Okay, on this table. All right, next on the agenda is variance application 2022-113. Mick McCaskey Landscape and Design on behalf of the property owners Jeffrey and Maria Johnson is requesting a variance from section 17.04D 4B and section 17.078 allow for the construction of an in-ground pool to encroach the required 30-foot riparian setback from a category 2 wetland for the property located at 11191 Caraway Cove, current parcel number 08-A-021-C-00-021-0.
Good evening, Tim McCaskey, 12377 Taylor Wells Road, Chardon, and I was sworn in. We got some packets for you to add to the, what you got out there. Those are just pictures, so I can some explanation on what we're seeing.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thanks. You look bored over there. Nah. I could be more with this material.
You're getting picked on over here. We have a really tight backyard. There's a creek in the very, very far back that is, I don't know, the creek is not that close to the yard, but the 30-foot, is it called an easement, Heather? It's called a setback. The 30-foot setback from the wetlands puts it in the middle of the backyard. So you can see in those pictures, it's a manicured lawn in most of the backyard. So it's pretty much just a yard, not a wetlands. But in the one print with a map, you'll see a red line and a blue line. That red line is the actual wetlands. The blue line is the 30-foot setback from the red line. The dilemma is when the development was built, it was not a law to have the 30-foot setback from the wetlands. Now it is. So it cuts their backyard in more than half, eliminating the chance of putting a pool in. So the argument is, can we encroach into the 30-foot setback, not encroach the wetlands? Stay out of the wetlands. We did have Chad, no, what's his name?
Chad.
Yeah, we did have Chad come out and meet us, show us where he marked it all off, and we were well within what he felt was well outside the wetlands. We are inside the 30-foot. We could have a study done to see if it's a category 1, 2, or 3. He said it's not worth it. You'll waste your time. You'll never get it to be a 1. It's probably a 2. It'll never be a 3. Play the game of it's a 3, and assume to try and get it inside the 30-foot that never existed before. That's the big argument of it wasn't there when they plotted the development 20-some years ago. But you can see in the pictures it's a manicured backyard. I did put some 3D renderings in there just so you guys understand what it's going to look like. Flat off the back patio. We'll pick it up in the air a little bit. We'll use some of that leftover soil to roll that last little bit before the wetlands, staying on the side of the wetlands, not going into it, just to help with grade.
Anyone from the board have questions?
Yeah, how big's the pool?
36 by 16. It's a fiberglass shell, so it'll come in one piece. Put it on the ground, dig it one day. There's a couple in the development actually.
There's enough room for you to get the pool in there and stay out of the wetlands?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And if you look in that print, you can see that 30-foot on the.
That's the original setback. This is the new 2016 setback.
So we got plenty of room to work.
What's your original setback?
This is the original, and then this is what was added to the extended 2016.
Yeah, once that pre that 2016 code, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yeah, there wasn't a setback.
And if it was a marsh, I would be arguing this a little differently, but it's literally a manicured backyard. He's got grass growing. The guy before this owner really did some work back there to make it look nice. But it's growing grass, you walk back in, Heather actually met us out there, took a walk. It's fairly straightforward.
Okay.
When did the owner buy the property?
A year and a half ago? A year and a half ago.
Any other questions? Everyone have a chance to read the letter from Chad?
Yeah.
Oh, he did someone? Oh,
Yeah, he sent us a letter too. Yep, okay, just want to make sure the board got it. Okay. I think you can be seated. Is there anyone else here this evening that's speaking for this appeal that'd like to come up or against this appeal? If there's no further questions, the public hearing for variance number 2022-113 is now closed to the public. Can I get a motion to approve the variance application 2022-113?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Any board?
I think the intent of the spirit of the riparian is like, if this were a completely wooded backyard, they're knocking down 50, 60 feet of trees, soil disturbing, which the language is, the soil's already been disturbed, there's a lawn there. So I think that putting a pool in there would affect this, per Chad's letter, zero. I don't think it's gonna do it.
Yeah, there's no impact really to anything substantial.
It's okay with Chad, it's okay with me.
Chad's the king.
All right, got that on record. So then,
Don't
can
tell
we,
him
questions on approval of variance application 2022-113? A yes vote approves it, a no vote denies it. Heather, please call the vote.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes?
Mr. Goling?
Yes.
Mr. Rowan?
Yes.
Mr. Valente?
Yes. Your variance has been approved, thank you. All right. Next is variance application 2022-114. Quail Developers Inc. is requesting a variance from the minimum 25-foot riparian or natural vegetation to be left undisturbed pursuant to the perimeter treatment narrative included as part of the master development plan for the Quail Hollow property for Quail Hollow Development Inc. and approved by Concord Township Board of Trustees with the effective date of October 8th, 1986, as part of the rezoning of 540 acres surrounding Quail Hollow and from R1 residential to R2 planned unit development for the property known as current parcel number 08-A-013-000-001-0.
Are we ready?
I think so.
Good evening. My name is David Novak from Barrington Consulting Group. I am the president. The address is 9114 Tyler Boulevard, Metro, Ohio.
You've been sworn in.
And I have been sworn in, yes. And again, I think you asked this in the beginning, but proper notice was given in the newspaper or whatever for this meeting this evening.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, proper
Okay.
notice was given.
All right, I just wanted to verify that.
And Mr. Chairman, do you want to make sure he's good moving forward with the four members?
Oh, thank you. Are you good moving forward with 4 members instead of the 5?
We are, thank you.
Okay.
In preparing for this hearing this evening, I took a little bit of, I thought the best way to approach this was to provide a short history of what's gone on here on this, starting back in 1986, all the way to today. And I'll make it a short story. We won't go day by day, but and just so everybody can see, this is the variance that we're asking for. As part of the PUD that was approved in 1986, there was a blurb that said that, that talks about, which is the second page in your, I'm sorry. It's going to be the fourth page. The perimeter treatment narrative. Much of Quail Hollow development is very heavily forested in order to preserve the natural beauty of the development and to eliminate the clearing and grading in these areas. A minimum 25 feet of natural vegetation will be left undisturbed. The maintaining of these natural wooded areas will enhance the beauty of the development, and I think and that's why it's highlighted here. Okay, in the areas where the site and adjoining lands are void of trees or other acceptable vegetation, the developer may elect to provide mounding, landscaping, or both, depending on the particular use within the Quail Hollow development and the land use / aesthetics of the adjacent properties and structures. Much of the perimeter of the development has common open space adjacent to it, which will generate the potential maintenance of the perimeter and eliminate the potential of the perimeter being violated by adjoining property owners. And why I've highlighted the development, okay? It's our opinion that the purpose of this narrative was to protect Quail Hollow so that, and again, if you read the 105 pages that were developed as part of this, when Quail Hollow was originally developed, it talks about preserving the character and the nature and so forth of the Quail Hollow development. And so that's why it's important that we understand and realize that, again, the purpose of this buffer was to protect Quail Hollow. That's what it says, okay? So if you go back.
Mr. Novak, was this what you have up and what you gave us, this was part of the which document was that? That was in the.
That was in the original development agreement that happened in 1986 or was approved in 1986.
Well, it's actually, more importantly, and germane for this, it was part of the documentation that was presented to the Board of Trustees for consideration of the rezoning to the PUD classification.
Back in 1986.
In 86, correct. There wasn't per se a development plan that preceded the rezoning. That's why we're here on the rezoning component of it. And that was presented as part of that and then approved by the trustees back in 1986, as you said. Right.
Okay, so if you go back to page 2, again, I'm not familiar how familiar you are with the site. Again, this is just a map off of the Lake County GIS. The property is outlined in red. As you can see, you have the golf course to the north. Hunting Lake Drive is to the northwest. You have some of those commercial properties that are on Cryle Road. It does front on Girdled Road. There is an entrance to the eastern portion of the property, and there's also frontage on Orchard Road. So this is the site. This is what we're looking at. This is, I believe, is one of the last, if not the last, parcel to be developed. And it's kind of interesting that on all the other portions of Quail Hollow that have been developed, this perimeter treatment was never enforced on any of those. Okay, so if you look to the next page, this is a representation. This was part of the original map, I guess you'd call it, when Quail Hollow development was first presented, or part of the documents. And there were two pieces, these two multifamily pieces. And if the next page is another portion of that. Okay, so multifamily -1, which was 13.84 acres, and multifamily -2, which was 21 acres. Back in 1986, it was perceived that this piece of property would be built with 250 units on it. Okay, so, but that's not what we're proposing at this moment, if the variance is granted. So if you go to you can skip the next page because that's just the perimeter narrative. The other thing that, again, there was just that one case that came up about, the riparian setbacks and things like that, wetlands. And again, this property, again, was developed before a lot of those rules and things that have changed since 1986. So this map here shows the wetland delineation. It also shows the riparian setbacks that were adopted in, I believe, 2016 by Concord Township. And as part of what our plan for this property is, we are protecting those riparian setbacks. We're working around those riparian setbacks and the wetlands that are currently on the property. So we jump forward to the next page, and
Quick question.
Yes.
Dominic. Has the Army Corps come out? and-
yes, we have all of our permits from the Army Corps and the Ohio EPA.
Okay.
So I believe it was in July of 2021, if I'm not mistaken. We came before Concord Township trustees, and we presented this development.
Is this page 2 in our, or is this?
It would be the first, yes, that's the one.
Okay,
Yes.
just want to make sure they're seeing what we're seeing.
Yes. So, again, this is the plan that was approved, that we received preliminary approval on from the Concord Township trustees. It was in July of 20, which this contained 86 detached single-family units, and it also had 45 townhome-style units. So if you look on the next page, you'll see on page 3 there where the units that are in gray, those are the townhouse units that were proposed.
Dave, you said July of 20, it's July of 21.
Yes, I'm sorry, July of 21. So that's what this plan represents. This is the preliminary plan that was approved by the Concord Township trustees.
Can the people in the audience see both plans?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
I
have
just want
the other one down here at the bottom.
to, okay, thank you.
And as part of that plan, because this was, we were made aware of this 25-foot buffer, and so we worked diligently, and you can see in some areas along the eastern property line, which would be at the top here of page number 2, where you can see that kind of brown squiggly thing up there at the top. We had worked diligently with some of those property owners to the east and with the trustees and so forth to provide some screening, some additional trees, landscaping and so forth along there.
You're talking about this property's back at the Viceroy.
Yes, that's actually the next page, but
Gotcha.
yes, but you can see it maybe a little bit more clearly here. So at the top of page 4, again, it shows some of what we were proposing at that time to help screen some of those residents to the east. And then the next portion down, I believe that's over on the next street there behind units 68 through 74. Again, we were proposing some landscaping down through there, and then we were also proposing some down where the townhouses are along the south line where our main road comes into Orchard, to again add some fencing and so forth along that area to help protect some of the adjacent residents. I'm trying to remember when we came before I think it was in May of this year, we came back before the trustees because we had preliminary approval. And the final plan the final plan that we did provide to the trustees had even fewer units, but in the interim, as part of our process of trying to get approval, we did have conversations with the trustees and so forth, and so we prepared a plan that closer mimics what would have been allowed in 1986, the 250 units. So this layout, again, protects this buffer that we're talking about.
What page is it?
Yeah, we're looking at this.
This is going to be,
Yeah.
What page does it say?
it says 1 on the bottom, but again, I
But it's at
apologize.
the end?
No, it's like right after
It's right after that.
that.
Got it.
So this plan that we have here has more units, but it has 25-foot buffers.
It has a 25-foot buffer. It has 221 units. It doesn't have the entire 250 that was originally conceived in 1986. My client believes we could get to the 250, but I think that might be difficult because, again, the wetland regulations have changed. Concord instituted the riparian setbacks. So a lot of things have changed. So some of the property that we could have used back in 1986, we can't use today.
So these are the Plan A from '86, which is the black and white one I'm looking at. Number 1, I think you have it up there now.
Yes.
So the original plan was just like a bunch of townhomes in there, 250, none of the single family detached that are in the current plan.
Yes.
So this one has, it's just basically just all townhomes.
Yes.
The old plan. I'm calling it old.
Well,
plan.
yes, but it was a plan that we developed as part of our discussions with the trustees to demonstrate
Right.
that if we have to preserve that 25-foot buffer,
Then this is what you
then
get.
this is what we would have to build,
Right. So
or
if-
could build, with
So this plan gives us how many units?
221.
221 units and no variances.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. just
As
wanna-
opposed to how many units with the variant?
We are the final, so we had the plan that was developed that we got approved for the preliminary approval. Then because we had final approval, or take it back, since we had preliminary approval, we came back to the trustees for final approval. And the final approval, or the plan that we came up with the final, was 84 detached versus we had 86, so we lost 2 units.
Okay.
And we still had 45 attached units. So again, refining everything, I'm going to say dealing with Heather and the riparian setbacks.
like that
I mean,
here,
she watched very closely every inch to make sure that we were in compliance. So we presented this plan, this one here.
That's this one, right?
No, this is the final
Next.
plan. So
Okay,
keep going.
Past the multi-plan.
Got it. From there.
So this is the plan that we came back in May of 2022 to seek approval.
To seek final approval.
Final approval. And with a lot of discussion, we were denied. But again, I think that this plan mimics very closely to what was the preliminary plan that was approved.
Gotcha.
And if you look, I think in the next page in your packet, this is kind of a blow up of some of, because again, I know Concord is very concerned when it comes to preserving wetlands and riparian setbacks and all that other stuff. And so, again, with working with the staff here at Concord, we made sure that we complied, so that we did meet the requirements of the riparian setbacks.
So Mike, I got a question for you. So it seems like plan with all the single families and the townhomes that the trustees were initially approved in 21. We did some squishing, lost a couple. They came back with the final plan. The trustee said we can't approve that. Is that because they can't approve the variance? Because that's a component, a procedural component of what we
Trustees,
do.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
No, go ahead.
Trustees don't have any authority to grant a variance.
Which is the
number one.
BZA. Gotcha.
Right, and we didn't do findings of fact and conclusions of law, but based on the attendance at the meeting and the discussions, if you looked at the minutes, the 25-foot buffer was a significant discussion point,
Right.
which, as Mr. Novak indicated, under the final development plan, being sought for approval by the trustees, intruded into that 25-foot buffer.
So the denial at that time was procedural because it had to come to us, not to the trustees.
Well, the denial was the denial. The applicant always has the right to, and I think Mr. Novak was certainly experienced in presentations at the countless night meetings that he and I have attended over decades, was aware of the fact that the main focus of concern by the trustees was in fact the 25-foot buffer. It came up in discussion with the building and zoning department, Heather Freeman, and also I've had conversations with Mr. Novak, and the way to address the restriction of the 25-foot buffer would only be through the vehicle, other than going to court and have a declaration, a declaratory judgment action filed as an interpretation of it, would be to come before the Board of Zoning Appeals and seek a variance from the absolute prophylactic of the 25-foot buffer, so, which is why they're here tonight.
So, the denial by the trustees, for lack of a better explanation, is it wasn't the trustees saying, hey, you got a buffer here, we don't like it, we're denying this. That's not why they denied it, correct? They denied it because there was a vehicle within there that they couldn't adjudicate, right?
No, that's incorrect. The vehicle of a variance wasn't discussed at all. They came in with a final development plan, which Mr. Novak showed. The final development plan in part encroached within the 25-foot buffer areas. It was a major topic or subject matter for the review process for the final development plan. At the end of that, and again, no discussion whatsoever about variances. The end vote was to deny the final development plan. There was no findings, specific findings of fact and conclusions of law as to the basis why it was denied. I would surmise with some degree of accuracy that one of the points, because of the extent of the subject on this particular topic of the 25-foot buffer, was within the consideration by the trustees that ultimately led to the denial.
All right, so they didn't like it, and that's why they ruled. So they did rule. They did deny it because they didn't like the buffer. It's what it sounds like to me.
Okay, you think that way. That's
All
fine.
right,
We're not here to talk about the discovery of the traffic study number one. I don't
Hold on.
want anybody to interrupt the meeting. You talk through the board. Chairman, please.
Yeah.
Don't yell out from the audience.
The audience has to be quiet, and everyone will get their chance to come up and speak up here.
Sorry. Sorry.
Skip, do you have any other questions for?
No, I get it, I get it.
So you had mentioned that the original part of Quail, and I realized that, I think in 1966 is when all this, the wheels started.
1986.
No, like for the original part of Quail.
Well, it was approved in 1986. I don't know when.
1986 was when the entire area, the PUD zoning classification.
Okay, I didn't hear 66. All right.
I don't know, it's 86.
86, you mentioned that the 25-foot buffer was largely not, it was ignored for the other parts of Quail. That's what you said?
Well, just so we're on the same page, okay? In the original development agreement, I'm not sure that's the right word to use, but the original development that was approved had this perimeter treatment, this 25-foot buffer, okay? And that buffer is supposed to be applied where any of the property abuts property that's not part of the
Right.
Quail Hollow development.
Gotcha.
So this, in this particular case, was on the one side, we butt up against on the north side of the property, we butt up against the golf course. Well, the golf course is part of Quail.
Right.
So this 25-foot buffer requirement does not apply along the golf course.
So it's just the east part along Viceroy.
Well, it's the east part, it's
South.
Oh, I see south, okay.
again, if you look at this plan here, it would be starting here. This is the golf course.
Gotcha, okay.
So it would be starting here, going here. It went out around this, okay, comes down, goes down, and then when you get to, just so they can see, it would be here, here, around here, back down to here. And then on the other half, again, this is where I stopped, so along
Yeah.
here, here, and here. and
Okay,
here.
okay, now I understand.
So that's where that 25-foot buffer would be required.
And the buffer that you're proposing is this squiggly brown line thing?
Well, that's to try, again, we're asking for, in our final plan,
Okay,
so we are impacting the buffer here.
right.
We're not here. We
Right.
are, so anywhere where we were impacting that buffer in these areas, we were proposing to put some additional landscaping as part of our final plan,
Okay.
or fencing or whatever.
And just so we're clear on this, as a matter of record, if the variance is granted, it's not going to be an absolute grant of encroachment in the entire development for the 25-foot buffer. It's going to be limited to what Mr. Novak has submitted on the development plan in terms of the specific areas, and it doesn't include the entire boundary, the specific areas of the final preliminary, or excuse me, the development plan where the encroachments are shown. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it would be based on our final plan that we have,
Right.
assuming that's the plan that moves forward.
Right.
Right.
Agreed.
So if we have I'll just say, if there's like in this area by lot 64 through 61, you show some tree preservation. I mean, I don't know what that dimension, it varies in width. You're gonna preserve those trees if the variance is granted.
Yes.
So, I was gonna say, like, do you have more to your presentation before I start, before we start
I
asking
do.
questions? I don't know if we should, I don't know.
If you have questions about these plans, you can
Well,
ask.
I think mine can wait till the end. I just wasn't sure if you were gonna, with the plan here, or if we should jump.
I think,
I'm open to whatever. I'm
if you'll
just-
beg my pardon, I like to think out loud, I like to talk it through, and if it benefits y'all, I'm glad it happens that way. So my understanding is this, that the original plan that was from back in 86, that one was like 200 some odd townhouses, no single family, none of that stuff. Then in 2021, we have to worry about the riparian setbacks, we have the 25-foot deal. You guys came up with the single-family ones in here, then towards the west part, that's just the townhomes over there. So if the variance is approved, then potentially y'all are okay with doing the single-family ones, but if it's not, you have to be reverted back to the 6 pounds of dirt in a 5-pound bag, all the townhomes. Back to the
I would
86.
say more like 10 pounds in a 5-pound
Okay,
bag.
so that's what I'm seeing here is that it was changed from R1 to R2 in '86. So that's something that's not on the table here. So multifamily was approved way back yonder for this area right here.
Yes,
So this developer can build townhomes in here, or he can build twin homes, or in this case, apartments. Good. In this case here, he's got single-family detached, which are single-family homes, but because they're in a condo, they're called single-family detached. Is my understanding right?
yeah, they are condos, but they're detached. It's because
So it's just like just a regular one-person.
if you're familiar
single-family
with High Grove,
home.
okay, right on Hunting Lake Drive, just before Prile, it's similar to that
So
as far as getting those are single-family homes.
So option 1 is single family from basically the east 2/3, the west part of it, just to dumb it down, would be the looks like there are 4 or 6 townhomes on there. Because you can squeeze that much in with the variance of the 25-foot buffer that you need to fit that much in there. But if the buffer is not granted and you have to stick with that 25 feet, and forgive me, how many total are in the plan with the single family homes?
I think it's 84 single and 45
Townhomes.
townhomes.
So we'll call it 120 residences. So it goes from 120 to
220.
220, yes.
if for the 25-foot buffer thing.
Yes.
I think I got it.
Okay, and so the final plan with the single family homes, has the fire chief looked at this? Like, does it all work?
Yes.
It all works.
Yes.
So you're confident this is gonna be, if that plan goes
Assuming,
forward?
again, I would have to defer to Mike. Assuming the variance was granted tonight, I'm not sure what the next step is. I'm assuming that we would have to go back to the trustees. I don't know if we have to give them a preliminary plan again and then go back and get a final plan. But we'd have to go back through that process, back to the trustees at some point to get some approval.
That's correct.
Okay, and so, Mr. Novak, your squares that are shown here, those aren't the actual houses, those are what, just the building footprint?
Yes, that's the area with which a building could be constructed.
Within that area?
Yes.
So okay.
And right now, I'm just saying, like, I'm looking at the page 3, which is those 6, 7, 8, all the buildings back towards Viceroy where you have the brown squiggly buffer thing up there. I think you might have that up there. What's there now?
Well, again, in anticipation of getting approved by the trustees, we had actually started to clear. But what we did do is we did not clear the last 25 feet.
Okay.
Again, and especially along the backside of Viceroy, the vegetation there is sparse to begin with. Okay, so it's not like we're really preserving anything.
Right.
Also down, let's see here. If you look at the GIS map there, right here, where we were proposing to put some trees. This area has already been cleared, we believe, by this homeowner here. Has actually encroached onto our property and cleared trees.
Okay.
So that buffer is not preserved.
Accidental or otherwise it happened. Okay. So it's not, so I'm looking, you're talking about the it's so little.
VITAS.
VITAS, okay. So the VITAS property, the northern part of the VITAS property where all these little current buffer things are, those are already gone anyway.
Right, and if you look at page, back to the beginning, you can see that area where on the GIS map, where that area has already been cleared almost all the way up to the, maybe even up all the way to the golf course.
Oh, yeah, a small section of it. So, okay, so your plan has less units. Both plans protect the wetlands. Both plans protect the streams, right?
Yes.
One has a buffer over around everything. This one has a buffer over, small areas. We're maintaining the buffer, I guess, to the south for the most part in the small area. You showed some trees as maybe something you would put back to kind of create a buffer. But those trees, I guess I'm asking the question, don't extend all the way down and around it, maybe kind of all the areas where you're showing grading. Is there a reason why they don't? Kind of like, so I'm looking at, they stop at units 13, between unit 12 and 13. And then there's a basin, Is there a reason why we wouldn't continue them all the way
The
down?
main reason there was, again, we're very limited on space and where that pond is and so forth. And when we had our conversations with some of the residents and the trustees and so forth, the area that's shown on the plan is what we had agreed to.
And is it just landscape you're putting back, or is there fencing? You said fencing earlier, but it's unclear on the plan.
We went back and forth. Originally, before we had any conversation with any of the adjacent residents, especially along Viceroy, it was our thought to actually plant a double row of trees. One row would be on our property, one row would be on the Viceroy people's property. In conversations with some of those residents, they indicated that they would prefer to have a fence down that property line, and we would then put trees on our side.
Okay.
And that's what's depicted on the final plan that we were denied in May.
There is a fence included in there then.
Yes.
Just on the Viceroy side.
And also, I believe, down along the south, along Lazuka.
So the property owners would have I'm just spitballing here, they would have an option if like you could do the double tree brown line thing, or they could say, trees on your side, fence me up all the way down.
And again, there's some people who would express they didn't want anything. So again, we can't force anybody to.
But would you honor that request? If someone says, I don't care, just do whatever? Or is there going to be some sort of uniformity that has to happen there?
I don't think it has to be uniform. If it was me, I would rather have it uniform. I think it's going to be more pleasing. But again, what I like doesn't necessarily mean what somebody else likes.
True.
But we're amenable to work with the residents to try to come to an understanding. And again, this is the plan that we worked with some of the residents and came up with a plan and discussions with some of the trustees to make it amenable to both parties.
So when was the last time you talked to the residents? I'm sorry, I don't.
I'm going to guess it was probably back in May.
Of this year?
Yes.
Okay.
May have been earlier than that. Right? This is dragged on for a little while.
So that would be the reason, like when I look at the townhomes off of Orchard and this property owner, there's nothing there. There's just
No, I thought that if I remember correctly,
What page you on?
4.
Okay.
Is there a fence? It's hard to tell if you were calling for fence there. It's
I believe that there was a fence called out along that property line, but
Yeah, if you look here.
I don't remember.
well, that's not the final plan.
Gotcha.
I know it was originally on the preliminary plan, the colored renderings. There was a fence along that south property line.
Yeah, it was an 8-foot tall gray vinyl privacy fence. Preliminary.
That was for Chris's property?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Do you want to keep going?
I have just a little bit more, again, because I know it should be important, and I believe it is to this board, that, you know, there's certain requirements that I should meet in order to prove my case, if you want to call it. So again, one of the, is, you know, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return and whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Well, I would have to say yes, the property could be developed without the variance. But however, the number of units increases from 129 to 221. That's a 171% increase. The increase would have a negative impact on the surrounding roads, the infrastructure, and neighbors. The proposed development with the variance is anticipated to increase peak AM trips between 7:15 a.m. and 8:15 by 93. If you increase, but if you do it with the 221, that increases up to 159 during those peak hours. Whether the variance is substantial, again, I would say no, because what we're providing is it's less units, less traffic. So all of those things are, in my opinion, a positive to Concord, because by allowing the buffer to be disturbed in some areas, we're reducing the density, we're reducing the infrastructure, we're reducing the number of trips that service this property. Whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered, or whether the adjoining properties will suffer interference with their proper future development and all rights as a result of the variance. Here again, all the property other than this is already developed, okay? But however, this plan, in our opinion, is keeping with the character of the neighborhoods today. You know, you drive down Viceroy, it's single-family homes. And if we don't get the variance and we have to go with the townhouses, the 221, it's not going to look like the surrounding neighborhoods. It's going to be very different. It's going to be more congested. Whether the variance will adversely affect the delivery of the governmental services. Again, I would say no, because we're reducing the number of units. That's the key here, is that we're reducing the number of units by allowing us to grade and work within that 25-foot buffer. Whether the property owner purchased the property with the knowledge of the zoning restriction. The owner was not aware of the 25-foot buffer. High Grove Villas was one of the developments by this same owner. No one was aware of this requirement. I am not sure Concord was aware of the buffer requirement. We also reviewed previous sites and developed within the Quail PUD, and none of those sites applied the 25-foot buffer, which I think is important. Whether the property's owner's predicament can be alleviated through some method other than the variance. Again, I would say no. Since parcel 30 was created as part of the Quail Hollow PUD in 1986, a lot has changed. The wetland requirements have changed. Concord has added the requirements for repairing setbacks. Within the girdled road corridor, there's been a lot of growth. This parcel of land has a very odd shape, lots of topography, wetlands, and streams. The only solution is not approved to build 221 townhomes. Whether the spirit intent of the zoning resolution will be observed and substantially justice done by granting the variance, I would say yes. The variance would make Ivy Ridge blend into the surrounding communities. The variance would lessen the traffic impact. The buffer requirement was not applied to other sites within Quail Hollow. Whether the property in question has unique or exceptional circumstances or conditions that do not apply to other properties in the vicinity and within the same district. Again, this parcel is if you look at that GIS map, it's a very odd shape. there is a lot of topography. And the only thing that I would say in closing, and it's the last page in your, as Mike can attest, I've been doing this for quite a while. And this variance request is very, very unique because usually when I go and stand in front of a board like you to ask for a variance, I'm asking for higher density, more units, all this other stuff. And I'm here before you to ask for, if we get relief for this buffer, we're going to build less units. We're going to have less traffic. We're going to have less impact on the surrounding neighborhoods. And I think that's a good thing for Concord. I'm not sure 221 townhomes or apartments is a good thing. So again, I think you have to look and say, what's good for Concord? And I think the original development plan, the preliminary plan that was approved in July of 2021 and was presented to the trustees in May or June of this year is the best plan for the township of Concord. That's all I have. If you guys have any further questions, I'm sure there's a few people that want to speak.
Yeah, I think for the record, I think it'd be good if you could just walk us through each plan again, just to show us where you're planning on putting landscape, fencing, and maintaining buffer, so we just all understand. If we decide to approve the variance, it's based on this plan. So I just want the board, everybody up here, it's clear to them.
Do you want to turn anything around? Are you okay?
No,
Mr. Chairman,
so
take a 2-minute break for the restaurant.
2-minute break.
Or if you want to just continue.
Can we take a
What's that?
2-minute break?
It's up to the chairman. I won't object.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
take a 2-minute break.
All right.
right, thank you for the little break there, everyone.
Thank you.
Got to stretch your legs. So, Mr. Novak, back to you. Finish
Yeah,
your
there were
presentation.
just two things, and then what I thought we could do is I can take these board and I stole a highlighter, oh, I shouldn't have said that on camera,
Yeah.
from in there, and I can highlight those areas so that you guys can clearly see those areas that we're proposing to put some landscaping. But I believe you may have received this letter. It's a letter from Quail Hollow Development and Inc. And they're actually from Texas. And they're the original declarant or the developer of Quail Hollow. And in essence, what this letter says, I won't read it verbatim, but as part of the process of this being part of Quail Hollow development, any variance or any deviation has to be approved by Quail Hollow Development Inc. And this letter states that they do support this variance. And again, they also talk about that it's help in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, the neighborhoods within and outside of the Quail Hollow PUD. So I think that's important. The other thing that I think is important, that if this variance is granted and allowing us to do work within that 25-foot buffer, there will be no structures, no houses built within that 25-foot area. It's just, again, landscaping, grading, and things like that. So I think that's an important point that everybody should be aware of.
What about, can sheds be built in that 25
No.
foot? Okay.
So because this is I don't want to say condominium complex, but for lack of a better term, because it's managed by, there's not going to be anyone building pools, no one putting sheds out. What's there, it's what's there. It's not going to grow.
It's got sheds. No, there will be no sheds, but if they could build a small enough house and put a little itty bitty bathtub pool in, I suppose you could do that, as long as it's within that building envelope.
Yeah, has it be within the envelope.
And if the plan as it sets now, talk about the single family things, these are owner occupied, but the townhouses, are those rentals? Or can you buy them? I don't know how that works.
I can't stand up here and say that the detached homes could not be rented. I don't think that would be the market that we're looking for. I think that they would be, just like Highgrove, again, those are detached condos. Those are all individually owned. Is somebody renting one in there? I don't know. The townhouses, again, most probably if we go to the 221 units, I could see a majority of those either being considered apartments and or rentals, which again, I don't think is the most desirable. The 45 units that we're proposing on our development plan, that again, some of those, I can't say that some of those would not be rented.
So these single family deals, just spitballing, if you were to sell those, like what would they sell for each one?
Today's market, that's a difficult question to answer, but I know, again, in Highgrove, and these are a little bigger units, there's some in that are selling for $550,000, $600,000. So I had the same look when I've seen some of the sales, okay? I will tell you that that's what they sell for.
Wow, okay.
And that was before the pandemic and before I think sublot 50 or 51, which is right where you go from Quail, not in this, but over at Highgrove on Hunting Lake Drive, where you go between Quail 11 and Quail 10, there's that one house there. It's got a 3-car garage on the right-hand side, and that one was over $600,000, that house. So.
And how many, the single family, how many square feet homes are these? I'm assuming they have garages to see.
They do, they all have 2-car garages and enough room in the driveway to park 2 more cars.
Okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head what again, they're gonna be similar or larger than the ones that are over at Piper.
And the average size of a lot, like if I'm looking at just, for example, number 5 right here, how, like, acreage wise?
Well, it's again, there's a building envelope. I want to say the building envelope was somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 or 47 feet wide by 70 feet deep is the building envelope for most of these lots. There are a few that don't comply with that. But I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember what the building envelopes were.
So I guess we're back to explaining each barrier, so we all have an understanding, what each barrier would be.
So what I would like for the board to understand is, where do we have a 25-foot buffer? Where do we have a reduced natural buffer? And where are we getting landscape or fencing as a buffer? Those are 3 things.
Okay. Well, first of all, on this one, this is where we're coming, I mean, we're encroaching into the 25-foot buffer, but we're augmenting that with landscape. With landscape.
So Viceroy and Emmerich.
Those 2 areas there. And on here, there was landscaping that was proposed here. So we were proposing to put some landscaping here.
And what about
And there was proposed to put a fence along this property line, which
Is that Lazuka property?
Yes, this is the Lazuka.
So that one's that vinyl fence.
Yes, that's along this property.
And then the buffer along the Viceroy, was that just the trees, or was that fence and trees, or it's fence on their side, trees on your side?
Again, we've had different discussions with different property owners.
Yeah.
I can tell you that some wanted nothing, some wanted fencing, some wanted fencing and landscaping. And we're willing to work with them to come up with something that's amenable, but again, we're gonna be in that 25-foot buffer.
Gotcha.
That's the.
I understand.
okay?
So the areas where we're interrupting the buffer and not doing anything.
Let's wait for that area last. Show us the area where you're maintaining the 25-foot buffer.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be the remaining areas?
So we will be maintaining, now, just so you understand, because this goes along the golf course, that's out of the picture.
Right.
So here we are interrupting the buffer, there's nothing there, but we will be maintaining the 25-foot buffer from here, so say like behind sublot 6, all the way around. Here we reduced it to 10 feet and 10 feet.
That's a 10-footer, okay?
Yes.
Okay,
And then as you pick back up behind sublot 84, that would remain undisturbed. And again, a lot of that is repairing in setbacks, so we couldn't touch it
right.
anyways.
But is, along 84, is that a 10-foot buffer as well? It's hard to read the plan. Lot 84.
On the south side of 84 would be 10 feet.
Okay, and then, there's 2 properties off of Girdle Road where you're bringing this drive in. There's no landscaping shown there. There's obviously, I would understand with the grading that there isn't gonna be anything left there. Has there been discussions with either one of those property owners about putting in fencing or landscape in that area?
There was some discussion, but I don't know what that discussion is.
No,
Okay, we're gonna hold our conversation. Everyone will have a chance to speak. Okay, so there's nothing shown on that property.
Right. And
Okay.
again, that, just so everybody understands, Ivy Drive that comes off of Girdle, that's only 60 feet wide. We have a 24-foot or 22-foot wide road that goes through there. We have water line and so forth that has to come through
Wait,
there.
Ivy Drive, forgive my ignorance, that's that new
That's
cut in.
this one here.
That's the one that, okay, all right. So the two entrances are both off Girdle.
No,
One is here, the other one
Is
is
off
off
of
of
Orchard.
Orchard.
Oh.
At the cul-de-sac.
Orchard's off of Girdle.
And Orchard's off of Girdle, okay.
okay, so then
I
let's
understand.
stay on this first plan, Plan 1. And then you're still providing buffer behind lots 64 through 60? You're maintaining the buffer?
Yeah, well, it is reduced, okay, but the hatched area, we're preserving those trees. So right at the corner of 64, I'm gonna say there's 0 buffer there. And then
Okay.
when you get down behind 61, it's probably closer to 20
Yeah,
or a little bit more. And then you have the riparian setback, which of course we can't touch. And then you get onto the other side of sublot 60. Again, it's probably around 20 feet wide, and then it narrows as it goes.
back towards sublot 59.
Yes.
Okay,
And then the majority of behind 58, there's no buffer,
yeah,
no trees. Then we have the riparian setback,
with a little buffer.
right? And then we have an area where there's nothing, because again, we have to grade and so forth in there. Behind Mr. Vitas's house, the area that had been cleared, we're proposing to put some trees in that area. And then as you come around the rest of the property there along 57 through 49 and along the south property line. Like I said, I do believe that we were proposing to put a fence along Mr. Lazuka's property.
What about what's behind 57 through 49?
57 through 49.
Is there a fence there?
I do not believe so.
So there's nothing along that property line?
I know at one time there was talk of putting a fence there, but I don't know that it was ever agreed upon to do that.
Okay, but there's a fence between 48 and 1, I'm sorry, 10. And then there's a little bit of a buffer you're gonna keep between 14 and 12, right? Is that correct?
Yes, that area there between those those duplexes, if you want to call them, that area would not be disturbed at all.
Okay, I got a question. If a property owner reaches out to you guys and they say, will you add landscaping or will you add fencing? Is the developer willing to add that, or can you not answer that question?
I mean, after it's built.
No, I'm saying after this process. Say this is approved, because whatever we approve tonight is this plan or whatever we negotiate here, if we approve it. I'm saying if somebody comes to you after the fact, are you willing to make that a stipulation that after the fact, if someone says, hey, I want some pine trees, or say, I don't know, like somebody, I don't know, on the other side of like 13 doesn't have much in the back.
I guess what I would suggest, because we have to go back through the trustees, okay, and they have to approve this plan or some variation of this plan. And at that point, I would think it would be better to make it part of that discussion than this discussion. But again, I guess.
Yeah.
I agree with that, that's accurate.
Okay.
They, assuming that the variance is granted by this board, they have to go back with a modification of the original final development plan to the trustees, which will then include in the conversation what the effect would be on adjacent property owners, what the adjacent property owners would perhaps suggest to make this more palatable to them, et cetera. So it's really something that's more germane for the, if the variance is granted, for the trustees to be talking about.
Okay, fair enough.
It doesn't seem like it's unreasonable, but again, that's not our venue.
I just wanted to ask the question and make sure we understood.
Again,
what that process-
we're trying to be cooperative here, but again, I would defer to Mike. I don't know if, let's assume that the variance is granted this evening, whether this board could make recommendations to the trustees.
No,
Okay, well, that is no.
But we could make, I mean, there could be modifications that we agreed to. That's why I was asking if that would be one, but it sounds like there's a better process for that, so I'm good.
Okay.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
All right, so the 25-foot perimeter, if that stays, it limits what you can do. So what you're saying is like, because that perimeter, I have to go with higher density. So my question is there any wiggle room here to say, okay, if we went to like a 15-foot perimeter instead of 25, does that give you enough room to work with a new plan, or is it an all or nothing? Like, I guess if there is somewhere in the middle that we can get to, is that possible?
Well, when you say all or nothing,
Well-
okay, all to me would be we destroy the 25-foot buffer around the entire perimeter of the property, okay? So we've worked very diligently to try to preserve as much of that 25-foot buffer as we can. And that's what's shown on this set of plans. And again, I mean, this is the statement that's in the 1986 PUD agreement, and you know, you can take it for what you want, but again, like I said, in our opinion, because it uses the word the development, and the development is Quail Hollow.
Right, but and if I read that, it says in the areas where the site's adjoining lands are void of trees or other acceptable vegetation, the developer may elect to put up mounding. So if there's already no vegetation,
Right.
So if there was vegetation, it sounds like they agreed to say we're going to leave 25 feet of vegetation. And I guess that's where, you know, I'm looking at, is there any way to say like we're going to try to leave more vegetation? We can make this work.
Again, is all I can tell you is that we worked very hard to get to where we are. You know, the topography, the irregular shape of this property. I mean, there's some streets, again, you have that long entrance off of Girdled. You know, that's added cost to the development. The street that goes up along the Viceroy property there, because it's narrow, because you got the streams in there, you're just very limited as to what you can do, and that's why we're here asking for this variance. So I would say, other than the areas that are indicated on the plan, for the most part, I don't think we can deviate from those.
I'm also, I mean, I see where in 1986, if they were looking in those two areas, 250 units, which obviously, because of changes, that's a lot.
That is
a lot
a lot.
of multifamily.
Right, but again, you know, Concord didn't have riparian setbacks then. Wetland regulations will be changed tomorrow. It's
Well,
just,
and I guess my point is, if we went to 1986 and did this in 1986, we'd have 250 multifamily units there. So I mean,
you
that-
could, yes.
that would have happened.
Because that's what it's zoned for.
Right. Right. So that could have happened.
Yes, it could have happened back in 1986. But I think the way that Concord has developed over the years since 1986, you know, Girdle Road corridor, all of Quail Hollow, I mean, there's not an area that I know of within the Quail Hollow development that has 250 units squished together. Okay, and so again, I think the plan that we have presented, that we had presented and got denied by the trustees, is in keeping with the character of not only Quail, but the surrounding neighborhoods.
Any other questions for Mr. Novak from the board? All right, Mr. Novak, if you can leave up at least two of the boards that kind of show the development. We have a lot of people here this evening, so I want to make sure we give everyone at least a chance to say what they want to say if they plan on speaking this evening. So what I'm going to ask is that we'll start with, maybe we could just start with this side, kind of just take turns coming up. Just remember to state your name for the record, confirm that you're sworn in and your address. If someone's already said something, I just ask that you just kind of say, I agree with what so-and-so said, but if there's something new to add, we're looking for, any kind of new information to help, help us understand the stance on the project. So,
Mr. Chairman, I think also when they come up, although the subsequent content of what they say will probably be self-explanatory, but you want to ask them if they're in favor or against and then go forward.
okay. I'm assuming if there is anyone else in favor of this plan, maybe we just let them come up first. And not you, Mr. Novak.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Gina Wallach, and I live on 11478 Viceroy Street, and I will sworn in.
And I'm her husband, Rich Wallach, same address, and I was sworn in too.
Okay.
They're behind.
So we're on the Viceroy.
So if you would look, please look at the Viceroy side, because
Page 3,
the first thing I want to say is that I think that this PUD affects different people in different ways. Okay, so I can see where people aren't into it, and hopefully they can see our issue. So we have lived at our home for a little less than 2 years, and we knew there was going to be a development behind us, so we would never try to fight a development we knew was coming. But initially, we wanted to keep the 25 feet because we had beautiful trees and such. Well, once that pre-approval happened and the trees were taken down, we do not have 25 feet of vegetation. So in the wintertime, we are seeing straight through. So
Well, and the other part of that is and I think this belongs to other people, part of our lawn is in this 25 feet.
And
So
exactly,
they cleared it early.
so from the pink flag post that's in the woods, forward 25 feet is part of our backyard.
At least it's grass.
That has grass.
So to your point about shrinking it down, it's already shrunk down just naturally. if you leave it.
So to the point of what one of these papers said is that if there's 25 feet of density, you would want to leave it. If we had 25 feet, we would want it. We do not. We maybe have 5 feet, which is a row of trees. So when we knew after the clearing happened, it was a whole nother story for us, because we were like, we're seeing whatever's going on back here very clearly, especially in the winter. Right now, there's leaves on the trees and such, so there's a little bit of shading back there. And the neighbor to the left of us, the same thing. So we had contacted the developer to say, we don't want you putting every other tree in our backyard. We would like a fence. And he said, if you allow me your 25 feet, I will happily give you a fence. So that was how that happened. We were just like, let's just see what he has to say, because why should some of the trees be on their property and some of them be on ours, was our thought. Our house and our neighbor to the left of us, the Crocs, are literally the most affected by the development on Viceroy. We will each have 3 of those homes in our backyard.
Right.
Our backyard is 0.61. So that tells you that each of those homes is going to be 0.20. You were asking about the
Roughly,
size,
yeah.
roughly. I'm just saying, yeah. So that's just where my husband and I are coming from. We would happily see the ranches back there and have a fence and maybe only have to see their roofs. But if the 25 feet maintains, we don't have 25 feet. So we are going to see those huge multifamily structures in our backyard, and no fence is going to be able to camouflage that. They'll be 2 stories high and just not appealing, and we feel it would be decreasing our property value. At least a home behind us is going to be equivalent to what we paid for our home.
Right.
But those will not be. So
Yeah. The only other thing to add, the developer is very open to discuss. We have a signed contract actually, and our neighbor about the fence. So if the 25 feet is cleared, we have a contract that says we get a fence.
And we really feel, because he had asked us, he said, if any of your other neighbors want a fence, I will do that. But we haven't been there long enough to even know the other neighbors to know, I mean, I wasn't going to start walking up and down the street. It's not my, that's not my job. But So that's just where we're coming from. I can understand some of the other things with a road going through somebody's home, and I wouldn't like that either. So I understand some of that stuff, but I think if you ask, you might be surprised at what could be done
No.
to make it look better.
Yeah, thank you. No, every condition around here's a little unique and
Right,
different. So.
yeah, so that was just the point. Everybody's feeling on this is different depending on what they're gonna have to look at. Right now, it's not attractive. There's just down trees and I know that won't stay there, but for us, we can pretty much see right through it. And I know in the winter, there'll be no greenery, so, again, just for us on Viceroy Street, there isn't 25 feet of a buffer. That's
Okay,
pretty much.
thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, hold on, really quick. Is there any other questions from the board for them?
No.
So we're in favor, by the way.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
in
thank
favor.
you for listening
Yeah.
to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that's in favor of the variance that would like to come up? Oh, hold on. We gotta take you up. So is there anyone else in favor? Okay, so if we wanna just take turns coming up, we'll start over here on this side and we'll work our way around. So whoever wants to come up first.
Try to go first. Always somebody's got to go first.
All in two.
Give a packet for Heather as well. Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you.
This is you, right, David?
Yes.
You have one for yourself, or? You good? You have one for you, or?
It's right here.
Right. Yeah, I know where it is.
Guess I'll give you a few minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's on. Give you a few minutes to look at that if you wish. But my name is David Vitas. I live at 8075 North Orchard Road, and I have been sworn in. So I'm providing y'all with a letter that I drafted to express my opinion of this matter. In the letter, it points out some of the history of the property dating back to 1986, which has been presented earlier too. This was the first PUD for Concord Township, I believe. It was.
That's correct.
Right.
The
Yeah,
PUD itself was just a initial.
brand new thing
Yep.
in the world, actually.
That's right.
And when the trustees agreed to it, they put many restrictions, conditions onto it in order to agree for the passage. Okay. The trustees had many meetings. I've looked through the records and that. Many meetings and discussions about the change in the zoning to establish the PUD. They finally agreed on a development, and again, if I recollect, it said 3 units per acre. There were 500 acres, so it was like 1,600 units. There was an open space percentage, and there was one that said they wanted to preserve the natural beauty of the forest, which it was being created to. Again, there were various restrictions onto the property, and the one restriction we're all talking about tonight is the 25-foot buffer, which protected. And again, I don't know how you can exclude quail when it said, I think the agreement also said, the adjacent property owners. And Quail Hollow would have to be the adjacent property owner along with me, because I don't think Quail Hollow Development, Victor, owns Quail Hollow, the golf course. So anyway, just to explain, I purchased my property in 1999, 25 years ago, designed to build my house according to the zoning at the time. I have over 2 acres of land. I spent considerable time trying to place my house onto the property, and after I finally made the decision where to put it, the township had new regulations on septic system, so they forced me to kind of put it back, further back, And again, I put my septic system, it was a mounded system then at that time. So I put the mounded system in the front, in the woods, to hide it out rather than in the back of the property. I was also the first to build on this street, North Orchard. I paid personally to have the water lines put in along with the fire hydrants, which were brought down the street. Also, I arranged to have the gas, the electric, the phone, the cable put in the street. Again, being the first one I needed it all. I was aware of that the property next to me could be developed and behind me could also be developed. But due to the restrictions on the rear property, I was told that limited development could go on there and that nothing could be built behind my house because of the restrictions that were put on the property. Okay. Now, after 36 years, the developer now wants to come in and change that ruling. Eliminate the 25-foot setback, which, again, would allow him to build something behind my house. Again, the 25-foot buffer, the trustees, fought for it and got it and wanted to protect the surrounding property owners, which is me and a few other people in the room. The developer says that changes in the law and conditions affected his development. He didn't really say what the changes in the laws and the conditions were that forced him to ask for this variance. And as we all know, maybe we all know, the Supreme Court made the criteria to consider the Duncan versus Middlefield variances criteria. And again, there are 7 different criteria, and I think you're all familiar with them. Some of them were, Mr. Novak mentioned some of them. Again, the property in question, number 1 was the property in question, whether it would be beneficial to the property without the variance. And basically, there's no reason to believe that the developer will not reasonably get a return on his investment the way it is right now with the 25 feet. Whether the variance is substantial. Well, yes, it is substantial when you consider, and again, the perimeter of the property, which would be, again, including Quayle's property, would be 9,000 linear feet. My property is 840 feet. So my 840 is 21,000 square feet. The Quayle, including the Quayle property, is 225,000 square feet, which is about 5 acres. That's a considerable variance to grant somebody. Then whether the character will substantially alter the properties. And again, if you remove the buffer, you're causing the neighborhood to change, as well as the adjoining properties. Trees and natural ground cover offer barriers, privacy, and natural beauty. They attract people to the community. The value of all the adjoining properties and the township will have a negative effect. Will the variance adversely affect delivering government services? Most likely, in my situation especially, I showed a picture of the flow of the water which goes along my property. And again, there's a creek there, or a waterway there, that meanders through it, and it does go over into the 25 feet, then it comes to my property, then it goes to his property. So it does, and it would have an effect if he eliminates that 25 feet of the variance, the water won't flow. It'll be backed up. I'm not really aware that the developer engineered anything to take that into consideration. My property would then maybe flood. Then another one is whether the property owner had knowledge of the zoning restrictions. I believe the developer did, because again, who would purchase 500 acres and not be aware of any restrictions, the deed restrictions, the PUD restrictions and everything else. And he's built there for 36 years. So to say that he didn't have knowledge would be kind of a false statement. Whether or not the variance, if there's a way of eliminating the variance, I guess I would say the developer created his own so-called predicament. He did not, he created his own predicament, and he should agree to what was originally part of the development in the PUD, and not ask for a change now. And the last one was whether the spirit and the intent behind the zoning required would substantially affect the property. And I don't think I would not agree that the variance would have any effect on his property. Again, he would only reap additional financial benefit, economic benefit. Basically, looking at it, the developer has not met the criteria for Duncan and to support his request for the variance. Moreover, if granted, the variance would have, as noted, a material negative effect, not just on my property, but on all the adjoining properties around. The developer's request for a variance should be denied, as far as I feel. And again, if you have any questions again, you can see some of the water flow. Again, on one of his proposals, he showed this big open area in my backyard, and one of the pictures I show where the trees, there is a void back there, but it's nowhere 6 trees wide. I think it's maybe 50 feet or something.
So when you say behind your house, behind, does that mean north?
Yes.
So
I'm right. If you see me on there, yeah, I have.
yeah, I saw that. So behind, I mean, he's not building anything behind your house. It's just a street. There's no
There,
houses
I think
behind
number
it?
65 or something like that. Or there is.
I might be looking at the wrong map. I'm on page 4.
Yeah. Looks like
Where's he at?
58,
Come on up here,
59.
if you don't mind, Dave. This is your house, right? This one right here?
Yeah, this is my property.
Okay, so you are this right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
500 and then 300 feet, 800.
Okay, so, all right, so yeah, so here, but you were referring to all these ones right here?
No, I'm referring to these.
Gotcha,
these,
okay.
these 3 back here. Again, by granting the variance. Again, I mean, other than these points that I made, again, he's approached me in wanting to put a fence up and wanting to put trees up in the back and that, mound it and that. But again, when he proposed the fence and said, well, yeah, but I'd have to clear 5, not only the 25 feet, but 5 feet onto my property in order to put a fence up. So I said, that doesn't make any sense, you know. In the back, he said he would put these trees up, the mounded trees. And I said, well, okay. He said, well, you put like a 20-foot mound and then put trees on top of it. But he would have to come onto my property in order to put the mound because he didn't have enough. He couldn't put the mound over the utilities that had to run along the road. So again, it was taking more of my property and what it. So he kept on suggesting things and offering things, but then just pulled back on them and that. So So I'm in the situation where I told him all along, you can build whatever you want back there. You know, whatever legal, whatever's there. I said, but you just have to abide by the restrictions and everything, the codes and restrictions. So,
Well, I'll ask you, if given a choice, all right, so given choice, you heard me talk through my thought process on this, because I'm trying to understand this just like all y'all.
yeah,
Choice A, single family, because you said he can build whatever you want, because he can.
Mhm.
Or choice B is the 10 pounds of dirt in a 5-pound bag adage, where you put the 3-story multifamily apartments, townhouses, I don't know what they are.
believe me, I firmly believe that all he did is come up with a scare tactic to impress
Maybe,
y'all,
right.
to force upon you to make a decision for his benefit. Okay, there's no economic benefit that he would have to put 225 or 250 townhouses back there. I mean, it makes no economic sense for him. He would blend it somehow. I'm not saying he won't do it. I mean, he could do it.
Yeah, I'm not
Do
privy to
whatever-
that. I don't know how the money thing works.
Right.
But like you, it's like I don't know if I'm
Well,
willing to.
if he can sell a house for 600,000, or these condos, 3-story condos, whatever they might be, or might even have to rent them because he can't, it only makes common sense that he'd build a house. He wouldn't build it. So there's a scare tactic out there that he's saying that, that he could do 250. Maybe and again, if he's allowed to do it, I'm fine with it. I don't care. But I'm not going to have a fence next to my property or along my property, because he would clear right up to my property line and 5 feet onto my property in order to put his
So no offense for you.
fence. No, it doesn't make any sense. And again, once this gets established, if I need to landscape along certain areas, and if I need to put a fence up someplace, I'll put my fence up. I mean, I don't need him to put a 500-foot fence along the property, because 300 feet of it is just my driveway. So,
I see.
so yeah, that's right. And again, when you read the letter from Quail Hollow, I guess it's a little bit. I didn't quite understand the essence of it. That they were, if nothing gets, they agreed that if nothing gets changed, they're in favor of it. But it appears that he's not requesting a variance. He's requesting that you eliminate 25 feet. Now he's come and said that some people I'll negotiate with and put a fence up here or do something there.
Well, yeah, and per the plan we have, that's why we asked him to walk us through that. He's committed to providing the 25-foot buffer into some areas. He's committed to providing a 10-foot buffer in some areas, and he's committed to putting some landscape.
He showed that plan, and I didn't agree to it. I didn't agree to those mountains and trees and
Yeah, I understand.
infringing on my property and everything else. Basically, I wrote him and told him to stay off my property.
Yeah.
Do whatever you're legally allowed to do. So,
Right.
and so then again, he came in at the last minute and cut down all the trees. And I don't know if you've traveled down that area at all. But, it's not a very pretty sight. It's been that way since March. So,
Yeah, I saw. I drove up Orchard.
yeah,
Saw
and
it
he hasn't
first
done anything to
Yeah.
improve it or help us out. So,
Well, we can't.
and I worry about mosquitoes and all that other stuff now.
Okay.
There is-
Do you any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Who's next?
I too have a handout. Can I just hand it off to you then, or just give it to
Oh,
them,
I
right?
can.
Okay, thanks. Chris Lazuka, 8130 North Orchard. I have been sworn. I agree with all of what Dave just said. I'm going to try my best not to repeat as much as I can, but I did want to, knowing that these Duncan factors, thank you, these 7 questions are to be the criterion with which you make a variance decision. I wanted to, of course, just focus on that. Just kind of laser sight on that because I thought some of his, Mr. Novak's answers to that were pretty creative. I think that, well, I'll just go right in. Will the property yield a reasonable return, or can there be a beneficial use of the property without the variance? Well, yes, he's already submitted plans that honor the setbacks. It's possible, it's zoned. You know, I share the attitude that I don't want my property looking like a military base with a fence around it. I think that initial discussion that Mr. Victor came to us on was before we were aware of this setback, and once we got educated, the conversation stopped. I've got trees all around the property. I want as many trees as possible. This 25 feet along my property, which covers 900 feet one way, and then I'm a trustee for my mother's property, which covers going northbound another, I think, it's a total of over 1,100 linear feet of affected area, which have hundreds of good-sized trees on them. I want that. Push whatever, to compare Highgrove to Viceroy is such a stretch. I mean, you guys know what a Highgrove looks like. Houses are this far apart. Viceroy is so different from that. Whatever plan they go with, there's such a stark contrast to the surrounding communities or developments. I'm on 5 acres. They're on at least an acre. Dave's on 2. Just look at the drawings themselves. It speaks for itself. Look at this. Look at the density, even on the lower density option. To me, it's all unattractive, right? But it is what it is. And just like Dave, I knew it was going to be developed. But I prefer to have the trees. Is the variance substantial? It's enormous. 21 adjoining property owners are impacted by this. I went on the auditor's site and calculated 9,700 linear feet of border, 5.5 acres of impacted area. Will the essential character of the neighborhood be substantially altered? I think I just spoke to that. But I did want to comment on the claim that that having fewer homes, to me, is irrelevant. 220, 160, 180. The noise is the same. The traffic is going to be terrible. It's all funneling out these 2 tiny streets. I don't know how on earth this was even planned in the first place, but here we are. So the noise, if this variance is granted, the noise is just going to be 25 feet closer. The traffic is just going to be 25 feet closer. To me, you can split hairs between 180 and 160 and 220. To me, it's going to be all the same. Will the variance adversely affect the delivery of government services? Are you guys aware of have any government services weighed in on this? Fire,
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Back when the preliminary plan was discussed. I'm
And
not
no
sure how much
issues?
of an update, yeah.
Okay. I was just referring to the township on that. Did the property owner purchase the property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions? Of course he did. Of course he's aware of it. He's already built in the PUD, and the fact that he has gotten away with not honoring these setbacks in the past, I hope is not going to be used as a precedent to allow this. I don't think he's faced, abutting communities like this property is. It's kind of unique, I think, maybe within the whole development of the PUD. Can the problem be resolved by some manner other than granting of the variance? Well, yes. He's already demonstrated that. There is an option that honors the setback. And will it preserve the spirit and intent of the zoning resolution, and will substantial justice be done by granting the variance? So, reviewing the PUD language, the spirit and intent is very clear. There was to be a natural forest border in support of a natural character that, to me, is very clearly defined. Removing this setback just completely contradicts that spirit and intent of the PUD language. And then finally, I think it's just very, very noteworthy that the developer presented the same logic to the trustees on May 4th. And I'm talking the logic defending, or this notion that this setback is at the developer's or the development's discretion. That was completely rejected unanimously on May 4th. If you go to watch the YouTube video, it's at 1 hour and 16 minutes. There's a lengthy discussion on it. Unanimously rejected. Please deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on. Can you please stay up there just for a second? Do you have any questions from the board?
Questions?
No? Okay, thank you. Please be seated.
My name is Jeff Jaycees. I live at 1474 Viceroy Street. Been there for about 13, 14 years.
And you've been sworn in, sir?
Yes, I've been sworn.
Thank you.
Mr. Vitas and Mr. Lazuka are in lockstep with my feelings on this development and the issues that have just been created by it and the amount of question marks that are within it. And so basically all I'm going to say is I'm voting no. And the reason being is basically what you just heard. And I see no reason to expound on that because we'd just be adding more validity to what they're doing, which is what I agree with. So with that, I say no. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No.
My name is Chad Emmerich. I'm at 8095 North Orchard Road. I've already been sworn in. I agree with Mr. Lazuka, actually all the speakers so far, Mr. Lazuka, Dave, and the last speaker as well. I would beg that you deny the request as well. The developer said he's worked very diligently to maintain the buffer, but it brings me back to a snowy Saturday, March 26th day when logging trucks were in the backyard, logging trees, without even flags or surveys marked. The property lines were not even marked and they were cutting trees down. There were trees everywhere before the loggers. The developer has decided to move it to 10 foot or 0 foot in some of these areas. I have 7 to 8 homes behind my property. On the map, it's 65 or 66 to 72. I'm clearly affected by one of the areas where he's trying to avoid the buffer and plant trees or a mound instead. The discussions have been minimal. There were some initial discussions originally, but they tapered off, probably 5 months or so ago. There's some reduced natural buffer in the area as well. So even though it might be 25 feet, it's very reduced by thin vegetation. Some have mentioned there's several creeks and water passageways going behind our property. I have no idea how they're going to be controlled to allow the water to flow. Hopefully that's going to be addressed as well. But again, I think, as many have mentioned, I think several of these issues have been brought up based on the way this has been handled from the beginning, and I would beg you to deny the request as well.
Thank you. Good. Thank you. You can be seated. Anyone else want to come up from that side? No.
My name is Mary Jo Circa. I live at 11419 Girdled Road, right next to the road going into the development. And I have been sworn in. And I am apologizing for jumping and
don't have to
being excited.
No, you don't even apologize. Everyone gets
I just
excited.
wanted to set a proper tone.
I just had one question, well, a couple questions. First off, already the 25 feet is gone behind ours. Luckily, we have about 80 foot of woods that belong to us. Okay, but they cut right up to our property line. So it's like they didn't even care about the variance or the, 25 foot allowance anyhow. It's already gone. They already cut all the trees down. Secondly, I can't understand why he needs to put, if he doesn't get his way, then he's going to put more houses in. Why can't he make the same amount of profit keeping with this original plan? That's what I don't understand. The original plan is got the buffer in there and plenty of houses so he can benefit financially. And how do we know that if we approve the variance or you approve the variance, that he's not going to go ahead and put more stuff in anyhow? he's gonna present another plan with townhouses and more houses, maybe 150, 160. How do we know he's not gonna push for more than if we keep, if we allow the variance and he says he's only gonna do the 125 or whatever? That's one thing that I don't understand. So, and we're right next to the road going in. What kind of buffer are we gonna get? Are we gonna see all the traffic coming in? He hasn't reached out and talked to us at all. He sat behind me at the May meeting and said, oh, I'll work with you. But that's as far as it got. And another thing is, what about, is there gonna be a traffic light right at, because Timberlane is coming in, the Ivy Ridge or whatever they're gonna call that street is coming out. We got Girdle Road, we got the two dips by the, between us and the Viceroy area, or thank you, Nature Preserve. And then we also have a dip coming from the other side that you cannot see traffic. That's my concern. There's gonna be accidents like you don't believe. Because they fly down Girdle Road now anyhow. It's 45, but nobody does just 45. That's my main concerns. So.
Just to answer your question on the traffic, I mean, we're not here to review the traffic study or any kind of design.
They didn't have a proper one submitted.
So I don't know, Heather, is that goes to the county for review? Would that, if there's any kind of, stop sign or traffic light put in, right, that would go to the county for review?
Yes, Yvonne.
If it goes forward.
Right, a traffic study was submitted to the county engineers that was under review earlier this year.
The May meeting, that's one of the reasons the trustees denied, was because they didn't have a proper traffic study.
Yeah, I just want to let you know that it sounds like one was submitted and it's under review, so you know. I mean, maybe this is a question for you, Mike. If Mr. Lucas, if in this plan, he says he's going to provide a 10-foot buffer of natural vegetation, and they end up clearing more. They end up clearing that area, or they say they're going to keep 25 feet as part of this plan, and they clear it. How do we handle that situation going forward?
Well, the variance requested is established by what was presented in the development plan, number one, and secondly, by the additional supplemental information regarding the yellow highlight, right?
Right. So
if there's a encroachment beyond what's submitted on the development plan within the 25 foot, it goes deeper into the 5 foot, they're in violation of what was granted by the variance, and the township could go to court and get a temporary restraining order followed by a preliminary and permanent injunction because of their violation of the buffer beyond what was granted by this board.
Okay. And then her question about the 121 units in this plan versus the 200, whatever plan or what we approve or don't approve tonight, is there anything we could do to restrict adding units to this plan? Or is it, this is the plan, so if we approve, say we do approve this plan as is, that just says, they gotta stay within the amount of units shown on the plan?
The development plan itself is the footprint, if you will, for what is being encroached upon within the 25-foot buffer requirement.
Okay.
Any development plan modifications within the envelope exclusive of the 25-foot buffer, which you would be establishing by the grant of the variance, would be part of the trustees' final development plan review.
Okay, so we don't have anything to do with that. So if anything outside of the 25, anything outside the buffer areas, we can't control with this board. So when that goes over to the trustees, they'll work that out.
But we don't know what's gonna happen with, they've already gotten rid of the 25 feet behind our property line. We don't know what happens there, right? And I'm sure there's other people that they've done the same thing to.
Yeah, so that was two things. It's like one, like I understand there's like, what if we say it's cool as long as they stick to this plan, but they can't okey-doke us and change it after? right? So that's
On the
that's-
buffers,
On the
yes.
buffers, so that's what the
Correct.
that's between them and the trustees. But yeah, it's kind of a uncool move that trees are like cut down. I don't know if the loggers did something or if it's like go ahead and do it and see what happens, or I don't know. But the tree, you said that your trees are gone.
No, our trees, what's on our lot is there, but they
25
cut
buffer.
right up to our back property line.
Okay.
They cut right up to, so there's no, as far as I know, there's no buffer there whatsoever now. They cut right up to our property, so they've already infringed on it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, it depends what happens this evening. I think that's a separate, right, Heather, that'd be a separate zoning issue if
Well,
the.
I think that I would probably allow Mr. Novak to come up with a.
Yeah, I was gonna
the
do that
allegations
as well.
The trees were already cut.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions from the board? No, please be seated.
Okay.
Mr. Novak, can you come up real quick and answer that question or comment in regards to potentially additional clearing past the, right up to the property line already?
When the tree clearing started, we marked a line in the field that would protect the 25-foot buffer area around the property and also around the riparian setbacks and wetlands. Okay, so we didn't violate the buffer as of yet until we would get an approval either from the BZA and or the township trustees.
So for the record, so it's clear, the stakes that are out there now, those aren't necessarily the property corners.
Correct.
Those are the easement clearing limits.
Right.
Or the clearing limits.
They are 25 feet away from the property line, other than in the areas where the riparian setbacks are, because we marked around those areas because, again, we were not allowed to clear those, regardless of the buffer.
So the property corners and property limits are not marked out there.
I'm not going to say they're not marked, but we did not clear closer than 25 feet to our perimeter boundary.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, please come up to.
Tell the whole truth and nothing.
Oh, have you been sworn in?
No, that's why I did.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me, I gotta read it and you gotta do your thing. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help me God. If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Conrad Circa, 11419 Girdled Road.
And you've been sworn in.
I've been sworn.
All right.
We are, let's see, get this right. We are right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just for the record,
Going
Mr.
in
Circa,
Ivy Road.
just for the record, when you say right here, could you identify what right here is on that?
I'm at 11419 Girdled Road, right next to Ivy Ridge Drive.
Thank you.
Okay? So, the road here, this is girdled. Cars are going to be coming in here. Cars are going to be coming in here. This also goes for my neighbor, okay? So, I don't know how you feel about it, but if you lived here and cars came in at nighttime, every time they pulled in, their lights will go right through your house. This is my biggest thing. The fact that they cut right up on the line, and they did, because it is marked back there, okay? They did cut back there. Where, I wasn't pointing at the right thing, was it? Yeah.
Yep.
Number one and 84 is next door. But, yeah, these trees are all down, right along the property lines that they set. Okay, the pink flags are back there. But this is the thing I'm most worried about, is the cars pulling in coming from the west, coming from the east. Did my neighbor get it? The lights going into your home all night long. So that's my biggest thing. And again, the May 4th meeting was adjourned and they were denied because of the traffic study. And that's where we ended that night, was the traffic study. That's all I gotta say, but, to me, that's a big thing, that this is a crazy, these roads are gonna be like 50 feet apart.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
So I don't know what can be done here. Obviously you're gonna have a stop sign here.
Yeah.
But, are you eventually gonna have a stop light there, or what?
That's
That's not why we're here.
That's above and beyond what we're here to do.
I realize that, but
Yeah.
that's all I want to say, and I'm just hoping that they never came to us and to talk about putting up, and I would like a fence, like an 8-foot fence we're talking about, because that would block the lights coming through. So,
Okay.
okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I would like to amend my last statement in the fact that, again, when I was talking about that 25-foot buffer, but along Ivy Ridge, because the width of this is only 60 feet, this is clear to the property along this strip.
Right.
Other areas, it's the 25 feet.
So-
But this is also our property line, so I just wanted to clarify that there is not a 25-foot strip of trees left along this Ivy.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Ivy Drive.
But
I understand that.
But, sir, just let me try to do my job here. So sublot number 1, between that sublot number 1 and their property, we show a 10-foot buffer.
But
Is
there's
that
actually 25 feet left there currently.
okay?
Around this perimeter and/or like here, everywhere around we left 25 feet of trees.
I just want you to just state that for the
Yes.
record. He stated his point.
Yes.
Just want to have it
But
for
I
the
just wanted
record.
to clarify, this is also our property lines, and we did clear the entire width of this 60-foot strip going back.
Yeah,
to
I've seen
where
it.
you get to
Yep.
sublot 1 and 84. I just, again, wanted to clarify that.
Yes, yeah, I've seen it, understood. So Dave, really quick, has there been any consideration, again, of putting any vegetation or fencing or buffer along that entire, drive? Because to the resident's point that there's, cars coming in and out, a lot of traffic. Has there been any discussion? And is it feasible? I don't understand there's utilities.
I think there is an opportunity to do that. Again, what I would surely embrace, again, depending on what happens here tonight, again, we could have a meeting here at Township Hall, and we could have them individually, and I would hope that those meetings with the adjacent residents to try to come up with some understanding. But again, are we going to make everybody happy? No. We can have those discussions. We can try our best faith effort to make that happen. But again, some people have indicated they don't want a fence. They don't want trees. Well, I don't know what other opportunities there are other than leaving what they want is the 25-foot buffer. So again, there's limited where we are open to discussions, and again, whether that's with some of the staff or if that's with the residents and or trustees, we're more than willing to do that to try to negotiate something that is amenable to both parties.
Okay. Who would like to come up next?
Hi there. Stephanie Lannon, 11391 Girdled Road. I'm the neighbor of the Girdled Road residents. I'm the other side of Ivy. So I just have a couple of questions more than I do opinions. So kind of to my neighbor's point, yeah, the room that the light's gonna go in, that's my baby's room. He's 10 and a half months old. I was not at the May meeting. He was in the hospital, so I don't really know what went on at the May meeting. I do know we came back from rehab and hospital on April 25th as well as March 29th, and I have photos. I walked our property, and I saw that they had already cut into it. I reached out several times to Mr. Novak and said, oh, they'll be in contact with you. They'll be in contact with you. Nobody has reached out to me. Unfortunately, shortly after that, I went into labor with a child, so I stopped reaching out. So my question becomes, in this hearing here, we're talking, we want to be amicable, we want to make, I would like a fence. I'll get straight to the point. I understand the development's going to happen. I bought the property 4 years ago, understanding that some sort of road at the time, it was supposed to be a golf course road of some sort for, you know, little caddies was gonna go in there. I was not expecting a full-fledged road. I need to discuss the damage to my property. Your utilities have come through, they've mowed through my property lines, they've gone through the tree line, they've already damaged multiple trees that will now fall on that road. Who's responsible for that? If that falls on that road, is that my responsibility? They're my trees, but your equipment has destroyed them. The second piece being, where, you know, is there gonna be a sidewalk? What am I looking at for this street? So my question then is kind of more for Mr. Lucas, and if we approve or deny this today, what is my best bet for getting what I need, since thus far nothing has been working? What is the legal recompense here?
Well, congratulations on the birth of your child, number one.
Thank you.
I think, let's assume the variance is granted tonight. They have to go in front of the preliminary, I'm sorry, back to the trustees, as we've talked about. I don't want to give you legal advice, but you certainly have some legal issues. That's a fair statement.
Yes.
I think I would, without giving you legal advice, but hypothetically, if it was me, I would probably reach out to the developer first.
Okay, which I've shown to have done already, and I've not received
Yeah.
response.
Right.
So I guess that's my next course of action, would have to be to lawyer up then, okay. Is it possible to request an additional zoning inspection? Because I too believe that, while we've talked about the Girdle Road piece, I do believe they've cut into 10 feet of that barrier already behind the forest. I didn't go out there with a measuring tape or anything, but is it possible to request that before any further development continues, that we verify that they're not asking for forgiveness and they are in fact asking for permission?
Heather, is that something that the zoning department could do? If depending on what would, well, I don't know. Does that depend if this gets approved or denied this evening?
I would be fine with going to check to see. However, if the property corners and the property lines are not marked by a surveyor, then I would have no idea.
So
I
what
would not be
in
qualified to know where the lot lines are and to have an understanding of what I'm looking at.
So Mr. Novak, are you stating that the pink ribbons were in fact your buffer, or they're my property line in these photos?
I don't think we can address Mr. Novak, but we can ask him that.
All the comments have to be directed to the chair.
Okay.
With the understanding that the chair may ask that very question.
Then I can show you the photos on my phone. These are the
Sure.
photos I have of walking
Why don't you just hold it between us? We don't want to.
So you can see this was back on, this was from March 25th when we first got back. So there's ribbons back there that I believe are my property line. This should also be my property line. I walked the property line video. That's my neighbor's property line.
Is this your side yard or your back?
So you're looking at,
That was his house then.
Yeah, that's what I was. I felt like
That was where Ivy got cut in.
yes, this is where I was gonna get cut in.
Gotcha.
This is my house looking this way.
Okay, so it wasn't your rear. Okay.
Yeah, side into my back. I don't think I have photos. I did not go all the way back to the forest. There was construction equipment there, but I do believe they've already cut into that barrier as well as that barrier.
Can you show us those pictures as well?
Yeah, can you show this, guys?
So you've got pink ribbons back there, and then there's a video as well. So you'll see all the pink ribbons along the property line. As well as the equipment. Front as well, towards Riddle Road.
Thank you.
I guess if you ask if I'm for or against, I know that the development is going to take place. I'm for working with them and getting a fence and doing what's going to look best for my own property, whatever that may be, for or against. So,
Okay.
all right,
Oh, hold on. Any other questions for her? Okay.
I appreciate the time.
I haven't been sworn in.
You have not?
I'm not. Steve Ranny from Quail Hollow Country Club.
Okay, hold on. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God? So, all right, thank you, sir.
Well, listen to everybody's comments tonight. It's been enlightening here, but my main concern right now is the golf course, obviously, knowing that there's some comments about the buffer zone, 25 foot. I see on the map here, I'm reading a statement right here. It says, for building sites, clearing is allowed within 15 rear feet, no build areas, except for building sites 30 through 34. Now that kind of scares me. Now I know my company and our legal department in Dallas has approved this site plan with the variance. Now my understanding, this variance that affects the country club and its property is basically one lot, lot number 18. And it's right behind our 10th tee box. It's a 5 foot encroaching into the 25 foot setback. So to my knowledge, that's the only area that I understand is affected by this variance here. Everything else is 25 feet. So I want to ensure that's going to happen. With all my tenure at the club over the years.
You're just talking about, just so we're clear, you're not talking about the entire development. You're talking about the property that's bounded by the golf club.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, long holes number 9 and number 10. That's what's the question.
I just want to make sure it's not overly broad how you stated it initially, so.
So obviously, I know that lot number 18 does encroach into as part of this variance. That's the only part that I think affects the golf course. Now, of course, I have to direct questions to the chairman versus Mr. Novak.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. But Mr. Novak, if you could come up and point to the board and walk us through the we'll call it the north side, where there's no, because there are areas, for example, here where there's no buffer. And this is still golf course property this way. It's not directly by a golf hole, right?
It's right by the pond there on number 9, yes.
Yeah, but that there's no buffer in this plan of that area.
I've spoken to Todd about that. The pond's going to go right up to the edge of the hole there, and it's definitely not a buffer there. But it's not impactful to the golf course itself.
Oh, I see.
There's no injurious nature in that particular area.
And then you understand that here in this area, home sites 22 through 28, there's a reduced buffer. It's hard to tell what it is, but you have no issue with it.
Well, it should be 25 feet.
Is that 25 feet through there, Mr. Novak?
Again, it's our opinion that because that line that's contiguous to the golf course is internal to the Quail Hollow property or PUD. So the 25-foot buffer requirement is not required along the golf course property. And furthermore, that letter that I gave to you just after we had the break or whatever, again, that is Quail Hollow Development, Inc. out of Texas, and they've approved this layout, is where, how close we are to the golf course, the buffers and things like that. So they've agreed with this plan.
Yeah, so they've agreed, and so your question to the board is 18 is the only spot where it's impacting the golf course? My answer is no. It's not the only spot that's impacting the golf course with less than 25 feet of buffer.
I have not seen that copy of that letter or privy to it.
Heather, is that something that we could share with
Well, as part of the record,
There you go,
and
Mike.
I actually
Absolutely.
have an extra copy I can give you.
There you go. I have an email copy. You can keep that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Is this what he's talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, zoom out for me.
Oh, it's right. I see the pond now. Okay, I know where it is.
Okay, I have a point of order here. This letter is dated September 13th. It's yesterday. Signed by Ingrid Kaiser, our attorney in Dallas, who resigned 6 months ago from the company. So what we're hearing now is there's not a 25-foot setback along the entire property line of the golf course.
No, sir. Based on the plan I have in front of us and what he's presented, I would say no.
Then my stance is to not approve the variance.
Okay, and then what is your role with Quail Hollow?
I'm the general manager there.
Okay,
And I would like to make a point of order too. Whenever the homes are built there and there is an HOA, strict covenants of the HOA, that no infraction of that 25 foot should be occurring. Over my years at the club with all the other developers,
yeah,
going back to 1999 when I first started there, everybody encroached into the natural vegetation. And it's occurring and no one's doing anything about it as far as the HOAs are concerned or anybody involved with the Snavely product, the Bill Martin product, the Pulte product, all of them. Everybody's encroaching into the 25-foot setback.
yeah, I'm sure they are. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. I have to leave.
Is there anyone else that's either speaking for or against this bill that'd like to come up? We get everybody?
Can I do one more quick question?
Sure.
I'm sorry. If the variance is granted, can he cut trees tomorrow along the setback?
Well.
He will.
Theoretically, he could, if the variance is granted, comply with the variance limitations. Which the concern is, if he, let's say he's got hypothetically on one lot, there's a 10-foot intrusion. Now, I will tell you this, I would be careful on both sides of this because this might go to litigation. You have a 30-day time frame in which to file an appeal from the variance grant. So you're sort of doing that at your own peril by doing that. So it's just a legal aside.
Okay. Thanks.
And I believe there's a bat tree issue too, so there's certain restrictions from the federal government for clearing as well that they would have to abide by. So I don't know I forget what the exact
The
date
Indiana
is.
bat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment also?
Yes, sir.
Dave Vitas, 8075 North Orchard Road. I've been sworn in. I think, as you've seen tonight, as the residents come up here and express their opinions, that the developer hasn't really gone out of the way to try to satisfy us. He hasn't even presented a plan that really nurtures our acceptance. And if you agree to this variance, this 25-foot elimination, according to his past experience, he's just going to go in and do what I think we all know he's going to do, is cut down that 25-foot variance. Again, there's no reason for him not to. He's been drooling in order to get that 25 feet. If you agree to it, he will go in there probably this weekend because nobody is going to inspect or do anything on the weekend like he did the last time. And it's going to happen. And it's going to be somewhat your fault because you've let it happen. As Steve said, the manager, it's happened many, many times before in that development that they haven't adhered to the 25-foot buffer. So again, if you eliminate it right now, if you grant him that buffer or that variance, you can say goodbye to that 25 feet of trees, natural, which trustees long ago wanted to preserve the area. So good luck.
All right, thank you. Before I close the meeting, do you guys have any questions for Mr. Novak? Any need for me to bring him back up?
The veracity of the attorney letter is a little disturbing for me. I don't know if that was an administrative error.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Mr. Novak, can you come back up real quick?
If you could clarify that, what he said about the attorney thing. That Ingrid doesn't work there?
I really can't answer that question. I know that she's been part of the discussion all along, and I do know that the letter did go to Quail Development. I don't know what Ingrid's position is today with the company, if she still advises or is part of Quail Development? I can't answer that question.
But that came from Quail to y'all.
Yes.
Got it. So that's kind of on them to
Yes.
administratively check their stuff.
Yes.
That's all I have about it.
Okay.
Excuse me, can I make one more comment?
Yeah, please come on up.
Conrad Circuit, 11419 Girdled, I'm sworn in. The thing I'm thinking about too is I don't want a fence that's like 10 feet down the way to block the thing. I need it to go more like 100 feet or so, because my whole backyard is there and we use our backyard. So I don't want cars being able to see into my backyard. Okay, so I don't want just a little peepee fence here. I want something that goes back a little further.
Yeah.
Pardon my language.
Uh,
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. Mike, I don't want to open it. A question for you then is, if we've heard from these two property owners, you know, that they really want something there. I know what we heard earlier is that that should happen maybe with the site plan and adding some landscape. Should we, I mean, can we add any kind of, anything to this approval that recommends that they have to work with those two property owners and provide something on their property to provide that buffer? If we go ahead and approve this here, or should we just leave it for the plan review and approval?
I think you should leave it for the trustees and the approval of the final development plan. However, I do have a suggestion regarding the concern that Mr. Lazuka expressed about them going in immediately. I think because the variance is linked to a specific development plan and the identification of the areas of encroachment under the 25-foot buffer, that the variance should be triggered, and you're allowed to do this, triggered upon the subsequent approval by the Board of Trustees of the final development plan. So, in other words, the variance would not take effect as a matter of law until the final development plan is approved, which is really what we're talking about in terms of the specific variance at that.
And that would help with the clearing then too.
Well, that's the point, that they would not be allowed to clear yet because the variance would be triggered by the grant of the final development plan and the representation of the encroachment made on that. So if they started cutting, the township is in the position of enforcing, because it would be in the buffer where we actually have standing to enforce that, we would go to court.
Okay.
Which Mr. Novak knows.
Okay. You guys good? Everyone's good up here? Okay. All right, then, if there's no further questions, a public hearing for variance number 2022-114 is now closed to the public. Can I get a motion to approve variance 2022-114?
With the specific condition that variance takes effect if and upon the approval of the final development plan as presented here by the Board of Trustees.
Well said, Mr. Lucas. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion for the board. Would like to go first? I don't want to go first.
No.
I get that right.
Go ahead, Davey.
No, I guess it feels like we're gambling no matter what we do here, because
Yeah.
we deny it and we're threatened with high density housing. We approve it, and I think approving it and having the condition that, assuming that the trustees approve the plan, sort of kicks it down the field, kicks it, whatever that saying is, that basically giving it to the trustees to look at and make their determination. We're gambling there, because if we do this and they approve it, we lose the 25-foot buffer. I do think there is something to that 25-foot buffer that was agreed to whether it's been enforced or not over the years doesn't mean we shouldn't be enforcing it. So I'm kind of torn right now on which way to vote. So I'm definitely interested in what you guys have to say.
I think one of the things that the township did well in the recent years was the riparian and wetland setbacks, because that's really natural areas that are meaningful and they are getting protected. It's hard for us to say, and we can't, it's subjective even, how much of the 25-foot buffer around all of this was good buffer. We don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that it should all go away either, but that's what I struggle with too, is we heard from one resident, only one, that, hey, our 25-foot buffer wasn't that great, which kind of makes sense in theory because it's kind of older forest and probably there's a lot of understory, so a lot of stuff's higher. So, I'm with you. It's a tough one.
I mean, tell me with Stephanie and Conrad. Stephanie and Conrad, I mean, when I didn't think about that until he's like, we are headlight central. And I think about this because when I turn down my street, the people that live at the end of my cul-de-sac get my headlights right to the bedroom every night. But, with that, I think there's also an agreement here in the room, a mutual agreement that progress is coming. Yeah, I mean, this is, the tidal wave's coming, and we're all agreeing that something is going to go here. So protecting the interests of the township going forward, like to Davey's excellent point, that is like there's a lot or there's a boatload based on now to Dave's point is like, is it just a idle threat? Is it or I don't know. So do you have 25 feet of trees, which I'm trying to, in my mind's eye, figure out 25 feet, right?
Bigger than that.
Big whoop.
It's about this room.
But then you look at Chris's property, right? So Chris, for all his life, is look back there, knowing full well at some point something may go in there, right? But to that end, there's that much less coming over into, and I agree that there's the concessions with the mounding and the putting in the trees or possibly a fence or something like that. It just sucks because what was there we know is going, right? So are we stuck with the lesser of two evils? Is it the threat of 10 pounds of dirt in a 5-pound bag, or is it the 25 feet of trees in some but not all? And then I didn't really understand the golf course guy with the whole. I'm sorry, Mike. I didn't.
I think you heard him.
Yeah, but I didn't know.
Well, I think what he was trying to say is that when the golf course went in, the understanding was that all of the development around the golf course would have that 25-foot buffer.
Right. And nobody played along with the rules then.
Right, and over the years, nobody's played along, nobody's enforced it.
And even if they had a 10-foot buffer or a 5-foot buffer, no matter what they're encroaching in, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
But he didn't realize that they're going to have less than 25-foot buffer along more than just sublot 18. That's why he ended up saying he was against it. He thought sublot 18 was the only one impacting the golf course with less than 25 feet. But there's much more than that impacting the golf course.
And Dave, you brought up a good point that, although for the past 35 years, the 25-foot was largely ignored. I'm not part of that, but it's there, the rule is there now. And, the question is, does this meet the criteria set forth by the Duncan factors? So, I mean, it washes one way and ebbs the other.
And we can continue, I think we should continue this discussion, but we can go through the Duncan factors as a group and give our own evaluation as well to those. I
have a problem with that, and I don't think we need to go through the Duncan factors individually, because I see a problem where you've got disparate complaints from a number of different homeowners, and I feel for all of you. I've been in the same situation myself years ago, but if we were to line them all up and apply the Duncan factors as it applies to them, it would be different for each one, I think, depending on what they feel is important to them. And everything that is important to them, we appreciate. And then you have homeowners who will come up and say, well, we're for the variance. So the Duncan factors, you wouldn't even need to apply it because they're for it. I think we had a couple come up. Yet the neighbor right next to them is against it. So I think it's futile to try and apply the Duncan factors overall, because I mean, it may apply, it may not. I think you can use it roughly, but
I would disagree. I think that we're supposed to look at the Duncan factors, and I don't think it hurts to go through the exercise looking at that property as a whole, not looking at the property surrounding.
That's fine.
How do we look at that property?
If you want to do it as a whole,
I'm
then
looking
I don't
at
have
it
a
just
problem
as
with
that
that.
property. We can't look at, because I think that's what we're looking at. This variance, Duncan factors. What does this variance do for this property?
just know that affects.
It does, but I
The
think we should go
evaluation
through the
will
exercise.
affect and maybe,
Several.
and maybe go contra to some of the objections tonight. That's all.
I don't think it would hurt to go through it for me. I'll leave it to you guys.
Yeah, I think we can go through them, but I also think that, you know, I feel like they have made some effort. You know, I mean, Dave said conservable. I think they did make a strong effort to try to save trees. Just looking at the plan, because they are pinched in areas with the wetlands and stuff. That's just my opinion, sir. So please just hold any comments.
Please don't disrupt the meeting. Thank you.
So
Appreciate
I
your
think
courtesy.
they've made some effort and to saving trees where they could with some of the units, and they've made some concessions with the 10-foot. But we don't know how great of a buffer it really was either. Yeah, that's a struggle because we didn't see it before. Anything else for the discussion?
So we're not going to the Duncan.
No, I think we should. If somebody wants to.
Just looking this.
You have a copy? I got this one. Go ahead, Skip. You want to go through it? You want to read them and we'll talk about them?
Well, number one, will the property yield a reasonable return? Can there be a beneficial use of the property without the variance? I think everyone will agree
Yeah.
that it is, and it can be. Number two.
No, hold on, David. Do you agree that?
Yeah. By not granting it, without the variance, yeah, there
Still
it
be
would still be
beneficial economic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it substantial? This is where it gets tricky. Is it substantial regarding homeowner A, homeowner B, homeowner C? Do we get them up here? Homeowner D actually agrees with it. So how do we apply it?
Do you look at the length of the property?
You know, you're suggesting we apply it as a
whole.
whole.
But I think we're asking, so I think it's substantial in the sense that we're asking for a large area of a 25-foot buffer for that property, not just like a little stretch. We're talking about the entire perimeter, and anything it touches, we could potentially be asking for the 25-foot buffer.
So if you want to look at this, this is what I did. So the areas in red is where they're actually providing the 25-foot buffer.
Yeah, and everything else is they're saying is going to be less than.
Less than.
And that's what I'm saying. That's
well, not everything. Right here.
That's less.
Less.
Right. That's less.
Less.
Right
This
there,
is all
that's
less. Everything black is. Everything not red is
all of
less.
this is less.
Yeah. So I would say
But-
it's substantial.
But that
This
runs
is-
the golf course.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not counting that. I'm counting. This
and
is
the
all.
golf course is saying this should have been 25.
That was his interpretation of that.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is less than 25. This is all less than 25. This is all less than 25.
So is it substantial? Do we all agree?
I mean, we don't have to agree, but
I think it is.
I mean,
You don't, repeating what the chairman said, you don't have to
No.
have a unanimity whether it's substantial or not.
Yeah.
Just a
But it's
discussion.
worthwhile
Just
to
a
go-
discussion.
right. It's
Okay.
worthwhile to go through
All right.
the Duncan factors.
All right.
as
Number
the
three,
chairman indicated.
will the essential character of the neighborhood be substantially altered? Or will adjoining properties suffer a substantial detriment if the variance is granted?
I think whether we grant the variance or not, the essential character of the neighborhood will be substantially altered because we're putting in a development. Will the adjoining property suffer a substantial detriment to the variance if the variance is granted? I think, yes, they will. But again, if we don't grant it, whether we grant it or not, it's going to be substantial.
Well, I think the point of whether it would be substantially altered relates to, is it going to bring down the rest of the neighborhood?
Is it 25 feet? I think we should focus on the 25 feet
Yeah.
maybe, right? Is it
Sure, we can do
25
that.
feet gonna essentially alter the character of the neighborhood greatly? I don't know.
Well,
Yes.
alter it, yes, of course, but substantially, that's where I can't determine that.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Will the variance adversely affect the delivery of government services? I believe the answer was concluded to be no.
No, yeah, that's,
Did the property owner purchase the
Before we
property
go on to the
with?
next one, wasn't, I think in the staff report, there was a mention about, so even though like the fire services approved it, there was a question about safety services getting into.
That's why they added the second driveway.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I read
And
that
that's
too.
why- okay, so
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
right.
All right. And did the property owner purchase property with the knowledge of the zoning restrictions?
Mr. Novak said no, I don't know.
Well,
We don't know that answer.
well, his argument, I believe, if I'm correct, is that the buffer was actually yours to either implement or not. Isn't that your argument? Your client's argument? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the understanding was, or the point was that it's a buffer, yes, but it's ours to either implement or not implement, depending on whether we feel it applies.
That was
So-
his opinion, yeah.
So, okay, so then that goes, did they know about it? Yes, they knew about it, but their interpretation of how it would be applied is different than someone else's. So, all right, so again, that one, I don't know. If anybody has any other thoughts on that?
Davey?
I mean, I don't know, I mean, it seems like you would have to know what the restrictions are. If you're
Yeah,
planning
he's a
for
developer, he
development.
kind of knows the rules, I guess.
Yeah. Can the problem be resolved by some other manner other than granting of the variance?
I've already been told that if we don't approve it, he'll go with a different plan.
Yeah, so
Which-
yes, so you can,
Maybe a bluff, but this is the one, to be truthfully and honest, this one scares the crap out of me. Because then that turns into, yeah, to girdled, I go up and down there twice a day. Auburn career, take my kid
Yep.
down to get the bus, come back, and to your point, yeah, it's a drag race. But now, it's gonna be a drag race of people hitting the loop-de-loops, the hills is what my kids call them. And now you got cars pulling out of those two streets there, and there's gonna be a lot of cars. Traffic study aside, a lot of cars or a lot of cars times two coming out of there. And that's this is the one that sticks in my craw. It just scares the bejeebus out of me. And I was trying to do some totally high school math here, trying to figure out how much money comes in here. So like just with the big houses, $50 million. They're just spitballing here. And then with the townhouses, I don't know how much townhouses cost or how much they sell for. But I also don't know how much a whole boatload of the row townhouses go for either. But one way or another is going to be, someone's going to make money or someone's going to make money. I don't know how much it is, so I can't speculate on that. But what I do worry about is, we were semi-rural at one point, and development will come. An owner has a right to develop their lot within the scope of the zoning text and what it's zoned for. But if he can put the initial, I'm gonna call it the scary plan, with a lot of people in there, that bothers the snot out of me. The less plan, which he'll probably make a boatload of money on there, good for him, happy, hope he does, makes me happier, but to Dave's excellent point, is it a bluff? I don't know. Am I a gambler? I don't know.
With a commitment to the lower unit amount, at least, gives us some sort of assurance, but I'm with you, Todd. Just the sheer amount of houses that they could legally put in there.
It scares me. I'll be honest, it scares me. That amount of people, 200, 220, we'll just call it 200 for math purposes, times 3 people a house and 2 cars a unit, right? I don't know how you can't put 2 stoplights in there. I don't know how that can't happen.
Yep.
I thought, and God is my witness, I thought this was going to connect through the back end of Quail. I thought that's where it was going to go through.
Yeah, I thought so.
It would make sense to me if it went through there because girdled is going to need to be widened with a turn lane in the middle. I just don't know how it happens, but that's not me.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about 25 feet of trees right now and whether or not Duncan 6 is relevant.
Right. All right, number 7. Will the variance preserve the spirit and intent of the zoning resolution, and will substantial justice be done by granting the variance? I don't know if justice is the right word to use, but yeah, it'll preserve the substantial intent of the zoning resolution, I think. But again, it's not everyone is going to come out of this happy, unfortunately. So.
But yeah, I also feel for the Quail guy, and I forget his name. I apologize.
Golfer guy?
Well, he's the golf course guy. Where he's been there since '99. It's like we get screwed on this, we get screwed on this, we get screwed on this. Every developer that went in screwed me. This is my last chance to not get screwed, and I think I'm gonna get screwed.
He meant that metaphorically.
Metaphorically, yes. Literally. Pardon my French, by the way. So, yeah, and that's where, you know, the substantial justice comes in, is like, to Davey's point again, you know, that's just because it wasn't enforced doesn't mean it should not be enforced. I don't know how it got by. I don't know if no one was looking.
Well, and these are issues that aren't pertinent to this application, but are concerning.
Right, and in zoning, we heard Heather, she can't enforce some of those buffers unless she gets those property corners out there. You know, so if people get those property corners located, you know, then they can check.
So survey hasn't been done yet?
Survey's been done, doesn't mean they staked all the property corners.
Oh.
That's what I'm hearing.
That would make sense.
All right, so that's the Duncan factors.
Let me ask, so as it is now, if we approve the variance, we're saying, you know, all of these areas that have been marked.
Yeah, on that plan. All the areas marked 25 will stay 25. The areas that are 10 or less, the varying buffers, he said that they said they would have to stay. The areas that he's committed to putting some landscape would need to stay, right?
Pending approval by the trustees.
Trustees and final plan approval. So I'd like, again, Mr. Lucas did a great job adding that stipulation that we accepted, because I think that gives us a good level of, you know, that everybody gets a chance to be heard again, and the trustees would have to work something out with the developer for a final plan approval.
For sure.
Because maybe not everybody, you know, was here this evening. Maybe not everybody still even knew that this is even going on. Never.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, comments?
And just to reiterate, he was cool with 4 of us, knowing full well that there's 3 is a majority.
Mr. Novak was.
Yes, Mr. Novak, right?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
He was good with the 4.
Okay.
Okay? All right. No, we got the motion already, so the question is on the approval of variance application 2022-114. A yes vote approves the variance, a no vote denies the variance. Heather, please call a vote.
Subject to the.
Please call a vote with the stipulation as discussed, that the trustees, that pending approval of the final
development plan will then finalize the grant of the variance.
Okay, you ready?
Sure.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Goling,
Yes.
Mr. Rowan,
Yes.
and Mr. Valente.
Yes, the variance has been approved. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. We appreciate all the input.
I didn't read the
No, because the.
Yeah, we're still
with
on the record.
With the variance implemented, Dave, it'll be a different plan.
So we're not done yet. Okay.
Let's let everyone leave and then we'll finish.
Yeah, but I'm gonna leave. At least won't get more comments. Okay, go.
Mr. Chairman, did you want to take a couple-minute recess while the room clears out, or?
Yeah, Pete should have stopped here and take a break.
We'll still be here.
Skip.
Skip.
All right, next on the agenda is approval of minutes. I'm calling for a motion to approve the minutes from August 10th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any additions or deletions? None?
Done.
All in favor of the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, the minutes have been approved. The Concord Township meeting for September 2022 is now closed.
Thank you. Thank you.